I'd like to call the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners Budget Committee to order. This is the first of our hearings, and we don't need to do a roll call or anything, right? No votes?
No.
Okay. It's been a year since I've done this. So. All right. So I do want to start out by kind of setting the table a little bit here so that people know what this process is and what to expect as we go forward. So this is the first time that the commissioners will hear it, but they'll hear it at every single meeting from here on out. So, anyhow, the county manager presented his budget to the Ramsey County Board on August 6th, as we know. And the proposed budget calls for a 4.75% levy increase in 2020 and a 4.5% levy increase in 2021. The 2020 budget is proposed at $741.7 million. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, got it. As I'm looking at the numbers here. And then for 2021, it's proposed at $763.4 million. Now, I do want to point out that means that the budget increase for 2020 is 0.5%, and for 2021, it's 2.9%. Compared to the levy increase. And I think sometimes it's difficult for people to know the difference between those two. So the spending and where it's gone. The budget hearings on the proposal begin today and they run through August 29th. At these meetings, the board will review and discuss the information presented in the budget books, which is actually bigger than this, right? Is everything in there?
Everything but the CIP budget.
Yeah, the CIP budget is about that big as well. Anyhow, it's all contained in the budget books. Let's see here, making sure I get everything. So for the specific funding and spending recommendations for each department and service team. And those that are listening and want to look at the complete schedule, they can go to www.ramseycounty.us/budget. It will also give you all of the information that's contained in our books, in our budget books, down to the granular if you want to go that far. The first public hearing will be on Thursday, August 29th at 10:30 a.m. right here in the courthouse in this room. If you would like to speak to the board, you can sign up with the clerk to the board at www.ramseycounty.us/chief-clerk, all one word, or you can sign up at the meeting. The second public hearing will be held on Monday, November 25th at 6:30 p.m. at the Maplewood Library located at 3025 South Lawn Drive. Okay, so now for the budget hearing agendas. At the start of each budget hearing, the assigned deputy county manager for the service team will provide an overview of the service provided within that team. There will also be a review of the major initiatives and changes proposed in the budget. Department directors will present more details for specific department budgets. And after the presentation, I'll open the floor for commissioners to ask questions and for discussion. Sometimes that means that you need additional information before we go ahead to take votes on things. All budget administrative addenda changes will be introduced and voted on at the August 29th budget meeting. And for those, again, that are listening or watching, that is things that have basically come in that grants, different things that have happened, that we just do that administratively, and those have all been approved by the county board prior. So just making it part of the official budget is what it's doing. Commissioner addenda, if there are any, will be heard on Tuesday, November 26th, and final adoption of the budget by the board will occur on Tuesday, December 17th. I think I covered everything? All right. Okay, so the first budget that we are going to be looking at is the Information Public Records team. So I will turn it over to Karen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, I'm ready in my Ramsey County red with my Ramsey County pin on. For the record, my name is Karen Francois, and I'm the Deputy County Manager for the Information and Public Records Service Team. I just want to start off by saying something, and I think many of you have heard me say before. These are really exciting times for me to be working in Ramsey County, and I think it's very exciting for many of us. And that was evidenced to me in just one other way on August 6th, when the county manager presented a well-balanced budget that I'm proud of. I'm proud of it because it puts all of our residents first. It creates much-needed opportunity for innovation and capacity building within the service teams, along with balancing needs for growth, reform, and change, seeking efficiencies, improvements, and realignments within service teams while mitigating inflationary costs. That said, on behalf of the IPR executive team, I want to thank you for this opportunity for us in IPR to present to you our 2020-2021 budget. It is also a budget that I'm particularly proud of, in part because it's my first here in the county, but also because it aligns so well with our mission, vision, and goals, as well as our values that were developed by staff from every corner of the county. Many, many voices went into developing these values. Voices that say, we value people, integrity, community, equity, and leadership at all levels. Before delving into the budget highlights, I want to sincerely thank our team, our controller, our senior leaders, managers, supervisors, our policy analyst, and the finance team, who all came together to collaborate to build a budget that reflects staff commitment to maintaining necessary services, keeping expenditures and property tax burden to a minimum, and making IPR operations and service delivery more effective, efficient, and accessible. IPR is heavily resident and customer facing. Through the work we do in elections, and I know they're busy today, where we interact with hundreds of thousands of residents, to the work of our unified team. You're going to hear a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Our unified team engages tens of thousands of residents and other customers annually, collecting property taxes and other revenue that accounts for almost 50% of our budget. And our assessor's office that fields almost 20,000 phone calls and 1,100 appeals appointments a year, not to mention the 30,000 properties they review each year. We are also heavily focused on providing internal-facing services that enable all service teams and departments to implement our county's strategic priorities through the work of our Information Services Department, Communications and Public Relations, the Project Management Office. We like to call them the great enablers of Ramsey County. We also have another saying in Ramsey County that reflects the broad scope and the importance of our work. We are Ramsey County, the heartbeat of Ramsey County. I'm sorry. We are IPR, the heartbeat of Ramsey County. Thank you, team. Our 2020-2021 IPR budget includes resource reallocations, realignment of existing staff, program realignment, and major revenue changes to ensure critical service team outcomes are achieved while minimizing incremental increases to the budget. A lot of the work we have been doing and will continue to do to increase efficiencies that make for a better resident and employee experience has little or no impact on the proposed 2021 levy. My team will talk about some of those efficiencies over the next few hours. First up will be our IPR Administration Director, Tara Bach, who will discuss our unified team. This is a team, as you may recall, that consists of our customer-facing tax, recording, and assessing services employees, And this team has been realigned in 2018 into one team that is and will continue to focus on improving services and service delivery. She'll also talk about the capability team expansion that will help to support the critical county systems for tax, recording, appraisal, treasury, and the board document management system. Then our project management office director, Heidi Evanson, will talk about new practice areas that we're developing, such as process improvement and change management. These areas and these improvements will help each of our strategic priorities, help move them into implementation and to outcomes. Again, this will have little impact on the levy because of a new rate structure that Heidi will discuss. Our Property Tax and Election Services Director, Chris Samuel, who has shown today what a truly dedicated public servant he is, because he flew in from vacation this morning and he'll fly back this evening, so thank you, Chris, for doing that. And he's going to talk about new and expanded Residents First focused services in payment processing and elections, with modifications to how services are provided using a compassionate regulations lens. He'll discuss the busy 2020 election year, where we'll have at least 3 significant elections, and about how the budget meets these needs while including community engagement and a racial equity focus to this important work. This work, again, will have no impact on the proposed levy. And then our county assessor, Luis Rosario, will talk about a reallocation of resources and staff that's designed to improve services and service delivery, as well as improving the residents and employee experience. He'll also talk about integrating our current internship program, which has been highly successful in the county assessor's office for increasing diversity within that office. We'll be integrating that program with the countywide internship program in 2020-2021, and I believe you'll be hearing more about that when our strategic team presents their budget. Communications and Public Relations Director, John Sickfelin, will be presenting on the new alignment of the Communications and Government Relations divisions and coordination with our partner organizations, Ramsey County Historical Society and the University of Minnesota Extension Services in Ramsey County. And how this newly combined department, which is called Communications and Public Relations, will continue to support our strategic priorities and serve our operational departments. Last, our CIO and Director of Information Services, Rich Christensen, will lay out 2 key themes: IS as the great enabler of Residents First strategic priority, and strategic initiatives that reflect the rapidly changing IT industry. As one of the executive sponsors, I get the privilege of talking about the Residents First program, which is a cohesive and collaborative enterprise-wide effort involving all service teams and departments. The program drives the countywide strategic priority, Residents First, effective, efficient, and accessible operations. The policy statement says that Ramsey County, through the program, will provide service delivery and facilities with an emphasis on engaging residents and employees, process efficiency, technology, and accessible facilities. It also states that normalizing racial equity is a key outcome of the Residents First delivery program. As processes, practices, technology, and facilities are improved and upgraded, and as services are redesigned to make those more accessible, residents, particularly those from communities most in need of county services, and, oh, by the way, are disproportionately communities of color in Ramsey County, must be intentionally included in authentic community engagement and partnership efforts, from development to implementation, to ensure that all residents have equitable and fair access to services. Building on the current IPR modernization program's approach, the Residents First program will conduct enterprise-wide analysis of operations to find gaps and overlaps in how services are provided. Work directly with residents that use our services to include their input in recommended changes. Engage our employees and make changes to improve the employee experience. And I'm sure that all of you will agree, and I've heard some of you say before, that a happy employee makes a happy customer. We will also look at developing a Residents First technology platform that will make resident and customer interactions highly accessible and enable a no wrong door approach to service delivery. The program also builds on the 2018 Accessible Service Delivery and Facilities Action Plan that was presented to you in February earlier this year, which reviewed the facilities planning that has been completed to date and proposed options for continued planning. This work has become a part of the Residents First program. The governance team for the program includes Deputy County Managers Joanna Berg, Dr. Paul Allwood, and me. As County Manager O'Connor said in his presentation, this coordinated effort brings together repurposed existing funds with an infusion of new funds under a model that upends traditional prioritization of Ramsey County's projects and moves Residents First projects to the front of the line. The Residents First Program Fund will include new funds of $1 million in 2020 and $2 million in 2021 for people and processes. Repurposing of existing funds from the Technology Application Fund of $2.8 million in 2020 and an additional $2 million for a total of $4.8 million in 2021 for Residents First technology applications. New funding of $2.5 million in 2020 and $5 million in 2021 in capital investments in buildings. This program is a game changer. It's legacy building, something we can all be proud of, and it's transformational as we seek to build a 21st century enterprise. Now I will turn it over to our Director of IPR Administration, if that's okay with you.
Okay. County Manager O'Connor.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you, Deputy County Manager Francois, for that wonderful introduction. I just wanted to clarify one budget piece because we all shot eyes at each other real quickly. On the Residents First Buildings piece, you'll hear more about on the EGCI day. I want to flip the years in the many things you talked about. That's the only piece. I want to flip the years and say it's $2.5 million in 2021, and it's $5 million infusion in 2020. Those are capital investments through the CIP process, and so we'll talk more about that as we go through the process. Not all specifically today, but just wanted to make sure. The $5 million comes in year one to accelerate the work.
Okay, thank you.
And I would actually then open it up to commissioners. Did you have any questions about the overview that's been provided? Or do you want to dig right into the details? Thank you very much.
Dig in? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Tara Bach. I am the Director of the Information and Public Records Administration Division, which is part of the Office of Information and Public Records. I'm excited to be here today to talk about the great work being done by my team. My division consists of 3 different areas: the Administrative Services, the Capability Team, and the Unified Team. And all of them have experienced a great deal of transformational change over the past several years. As a division, we strive to provide value to our internal and external customers through the delivery of high-quality services. You're probably familiar with the modernization program, which began in 2017. It expanded across the Information and Public Records Service team about a year ago, shortly after Deputy County Manager Francois arrived. The program consists of many projects focused on transformational change. This highly impactful program focuses on outcomes related to technology, processes, and our organization so we can put residents first. We will be wrapping up most of the program work by the end of the year for the county assessor, property tax records, and election services, and the administration division. Much of the work and many of the changes to the IPR administration budget are a reflection of the modernization efforts that started as a vision and are becoming a reality. Let's start with administrative services. We've taken a service team approach when it comes to administrative services. Previously, departments had their own administrative staff performing the various administrative duties. This team has worked very hard at consolidating into one team and aligning the administrative services to support all the departments for our service team. This includes things like payroll, contracting services, space management, and providing general administrative support for each of the departments. The 2020-2021 budget reflects the changes related to this consolidation, including the transfer of a couple positions from property tax records and election services to administration. Next is the capability team. We developed this team in 2018 by reallocating existing vacant positions to a higher, better use of the position. We adopted the ERP, the Enterprise Resource Planning Model, which are the teams supporting the finance and human resources capabilities. The team focuses on maximizing our investments in critical systems used to support tax, recording, appraisal, and treasury capabilities, as well as the board document system. This team led the implementation of the county assessor's field mobile devices, and they continue to work with the county assessor's office to enhance and fully exploit this new technology by automating manual processes and eliminating data entry steps. The team also mitigated hundreds of vulnerability risks by migrating, upgrading, and/or decommissioning more than 70 servers. This team is currently involved in 3 major change initiatives involving critical county systems. The implementation of 3 new systems, the new property tax system, the countywide cashiering management and payment portal system, of which you will hear more about from my colleague, Chris Samuel, and also the new board document management system that will replace the system that you are probably currently using sometime in early 2020. The team collaborates with users, vendors, and the IS staff on a daily basis. We quickly recognize the value this team brings and how the scope has expanded to include things like the field mobile devices, a parcel database, and the new tax forfeited land management system, it will be implemented later this year. We are asking for an expansion to this team, and the 2020-2021 budget reflects our request for 2 new FTEs to supplement this team moving forward. We believe building this type of capacity is critical for our future. The unified team, as Karen mentioned, was formed late 2018 as a result of a customer experience project by bringing together employees who serve our residents in assessing, recording, and property tax services. Similar to the administrative services team, the unified team is a reflection of our service team approach, where we are bringing like services together from across various departments within the service team. The unified team concept is in alignment with the county's Residents First strategic priority. This is a resident-centered team that aims to better understand our customers and to focus on improving our service delivery. We want to relieve the customer's burden of knowing who to talk to, having a no wrong door approach. We feel we are pioneers in this area. We started by getting feedback from our customers and our employees, and now we are putting changes into action. We're working on redesigning our customer service model from a customer perspective and to provide a consistent experience across all channels. We will do this by providing appropriate tools, training, and knowledge databases for the team to access, as well as provide professional development opportunities for the employees. There will be an emphasis on diversity training as well as customer service skills. Right now, we're working really hard to create process maps, job aids, and training materials for the various processes that cross the unified team. We expect that training will continue well into 2020. Here's an example of an efficiency gained from bringing the unified team together. We collect tax payments every May and October. It can typically take several days or up to a week to process all the payments. In May of this year, we were able to utilize the broader team, the unified team, to process the payments. We did some cross-training ahead of time and were able to process the payments the same day we received them, ensuring the funds were deposited in the bank immediately. The information was updated on our online tax and value lookup system on a nightly basis and could be viewed by our residents the next day to see their tax payment had been received and posted. This is the type of work where our unified team is putting residents first. As Deputy County Manager Francois mentioned, the 2021 budget reflects an increase in levy for my division, but it is associated with the transfer of the employees and expenses from the county assessor and the property tax records and election services to administration to form the unified team. No additional positions are being added. This team interacts with our residents on a regular basis, either collecting their tax payments, processing their homestead applications, or recording their deeds and mortgages. We need to continue building trust, and I assure you that we are dedicated to providing the level of service that our residents deserve. The Administration Division is aligned with the county's approach to advancing racial equity. One way we are doing so is by finding diverse candidates to fill vacant positions so our teams better represent the county's population, and also by participating in the Finance Fellowship Program, which helps us attract, develop, and retain a diverse group of finance-related talent. As I had mentioned earlier, the modernization program will be winding down for the county assessor, property tax records and election services and administration. We are able to do so because we have been working towards operationalizing the work being done in the program. This includes moving to a state of continuous improvement, both for our internal and external customers that we support. I would like to thank my team for their continued dedication to putting residents first by continually working towards providing effective, efficient, and accessible operations. And thank you to all of you for your continued support. I want to point out that the budget for the Office of Information and Public Records includes the budget for both the Administration Division and the Project Management Office, which Heidi Evanson will talk about next. But I can take any questions now that you have related to administration.
Before I open it up for questions, I do want to point out that, and I will try to do this at the beginning of them from now on, this particular budget is found on page 62, or starting on page 62. And also wanted to point out that although it shows a significant increase in FTEs there, if you look back to page 56, you will see that it reflects the unified team. So the actual increase in staff or FTEs for this entire service team is a total of 5. So that's on page 56 if you are interested in that. So are there questions for Tara? Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much. This is all so exciting to hear about all the great work that you're doing, and just kudos to everyone who's embracing these changes in a really productive way. So you mentioned the great example of people getting, of you filing the notice or the property tax payments, nightly, and then people can see online that it's been recorded. And you transferred some personnel to do that, so you transferred them permanently into administrative services so that they're able to do administrative services for all of the areas, depending on whichever area has the highest workload at that time. So they don't go back and forth from property records to administrative services. They just stay in administrative services, right? I mean, these are permanent transfers into that area.
Madam Chair, Commissioner, yes, these are folks that are part of the unified team. They are permanently part of the unified team. And the idea is by bringing these folks together, it gives more flexibility to shift between recording or tax collection, depending on peak times. But they're all part of one team now.
Great. Thank you, just wanted to clarify that. That's great work.
Which, as you pointed out, requires a great deal of cross-training
Yeah,
and learning,
right,
and
right.
that can be,
A lot.
it can be, well, it's a lot of work, but it can also be something that really makes the job easier in some ways because you've got more flexibility, but also more difficult because you are learning new things. But so it's a lot of work, and that goes to the staff that's on the ground making this all happen. So, other questions or comments on just this part of it, and then Heidi will do the project management part of it. Commissioner Carter.
Yes, again, applause and kudos for the management of transition and transformation such as you have in this area. You have the unified team, it's clear, the administrative team as well. Unified, as you described, it gets to work more across the property taxes and elections and the assessment as opposed to the other areas of work. Does the administrative team work across the entire service team as well to support all areas, including communications and IS? Okay.
Yes, Madam Chair,
So-
Commissioner, yes, the administrative services, they do the support for all of the departments within the service team. Where
And-
the unified team at this point is more focused on property tax,
Yeah.
elections, reporting, and the county assessor work.
The
But I
more
think we're building a model that could be expanded if and
Indeed.
when it was, that it made sense to do so.
But the more like work
Yes.
would make sense, would be
Yep.
combined earlier. Again, kudos for that management. I realize that it is difficult to overlay all of those various areas. And we look forward to seeing that additional evolution. Thank
We're
you.
making good progress.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. And Heidi Evenson? This is still on page 62 in that area.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Heidi Evanson, and I'm the Director of the Project Management Office. Our budget overview starts on page 66 in your document.
Thank you.
The PMO provides strategic leadership for the management of Ramsey County technology and business projects. We are an internal service organization, a countywide resource available to all service teams and departments. We we provide staff and consulting expertise to plan and manage the day-to-day activities of projects that deliver improvements to the county's processes and services. Fundamentally, the PMO serves as the bridge between strategy and results. An organizational commitment to project management leads to better results and quicker, more predictable realization of business outcomes. By applying structured principles and disciplines to our most important initiatives, the county can accelerate the delivery of improvements to business process and supporting technologies, which in turn provides greater efficiencies and better services to residents. The PMO is in the process of transforming from focusing on just IT projects to an enterprise program management office, or an EPMO. Under the umbrella of the IPR modernization program, we conducted a survey and focus groups of the internal customers in 2018. The results show that county managers and employees recognize the PMO is necessary to drive transformational change initiatives of all kinds across the county, but there are still opportunities for us to improve the execution of our current services and expands our services to meet new needs. A roadmap has been developed to define our priorities and propel the PMO forward. In 2020 and 2021, we will strengthen our current capabilities related to program management, portfolio management, and organizational change management by standardizing our processes, tools, and deliverables. We will also work to expand our services in new areas, such as helping to plan and manage strategic priorities and process improvement initiatives. And we will continue to build better relationships with our internal business partners, learning more about the uniqueness of each and working collaboratively to strengthen our project delivery capabilities. In the last 5 years, the PMO has led over 60 large projects across the county. That means that on average, we are releasing one transformational change a month, and the pace is picking up. New equipment, new software, new processes and procedures, new methods, sometimes even new org charts. Have you ever put off buying a new mobile device because life is busy and you don't have time to learn it right now? All of these changes we make put pressure on our employees to learn new skills and adjust to new ways of working. The practice of organizational change management is designed around managing the people side of change. It's intended to reduce some of that pressure, help our employees understand why change is needed, and ease them into learning new skills so that transitions go smoothly, morale and productivity are maintained, and solutions are fully adopted. I also mentioned process improvement. Process improvement discipline gets our employees involved in analyzing the work we do to identify opportunities to improve accuracy, effectiveness, or efficiency. Once these improvements have been implemented, we create capacity for our employees to engage in work at their highest and best use, such as serving more residents, serving residents more quickly, or providing better service to residents. In 2020 and 2021, the PMO has an opportunity to provide our services to support the advancement of the county's strategic priorities, such as Residents First, talent attraction, retention, and promotion, and other important business transformation activities. The application of our discipline practices will increase the predictability of team performance against budgets and timelines and speed up the delivery of anticipated benefits, which will improve the county's overall ability and agility to implement improvements. To support the county's goals to advance racial equity and improve community engagement, the PMO will enhance the technology application program in 2020 and beyond. We will ask each proposed project to identify impacts in those two areas, which will improve the data-driven decision-making capabilities of our Technology Governance Committee. We also participate on the IPR Service Team's Racial Equity Action Team and Community Engagement Team. All of these opportunities will be gradually and over time. Administrative changes are needed to establish a durable structure for the PMO to thrive, including changes to contracts, staffing, and funding for enterprise-level projects. The primary challenge facing the PMO during the next budget cycle will be debuting our new funding model. Essentially, we will operate as an internal consulting organization, charging an hourly rate to service teams and departments for the work effort of our employees and consultants. This model will require strong support from county leadership towards the long-term vision of the PMO as it matures to maximize its impact at the enterprise level. In equal measure, the PMO must develop a roadshow to demonstrate the merits of professional project management disciplines and the results of our previous work. This is just now ready, and we will roll out our marketing plan, starting with the county manager and his executive team this week, and then the senior management team in September. In addition, the PMO must work to educate departments about the type of projects where engaging us can add value and develop a process to manage demand for our services, including planning and budgeting. In the private sector, PMOs have had more than a decade of acceptance. In many mature project management organizations, the PMO has since been elevated to deliver on strategic initiatives across the organization, emerging as an enterprise PMO. In the public sector, agencies have been slower to adopt, delaying the advantages of such. So in that sense, Ramsey County is a leader in innovation and adopting a proven model of best practices for project delivery. With that, I'm happy to stand for questions.
Commissioner Monis Castillo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I am very encouraged by the change management strategies. I think that there's been a lot of places where we could have used you previously, and so it's good to hear that we're moving in that direction. I just have a question about this new ePMO. With the work that we've done countywide to outreach to our external partners, especially in procurement, are we competing with those external partners that we're working so hard to recruit to make sure that we are working in cultural communities and our racial equity? And how do we fit in that? And how does that work? And what's that relationship?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Monis Castillo, thank you for that question. I don't think that we are competing directly for that. We focus on managing our internal resources and would partner with other organizations for external research and community engagement.
County Manager.
And Madam Chair, Commissioner Mask, I think it's a wonderful question as we think about this, because we're not trying to just feed our own while building up another space. The external buildup of the contract, the master contract, is around the community engagement side of a lot of our work. What we've been doing in the past, over the last couple of years, Ramsey County has become increasingly reliant upon a select number of vendors to provide project management service to the organization. They have served us well, but at a very expensive rate. And for new firms to break in, it's actually an area where, when we talk about things like small business inclusion and equity, it's a very challenging area because you have to know the large organization to be able to compete well for the work. And what we have found is a need to develop an internal resource. Departments will still have the opportunity to, either for niche services or specific programming, they can still issue an RFP and go outside of here, but they have budget incentives, I hope, as well as knowledge incentives, I hope, to want to choose our internal arm because of the way that they should have a leg up in being prepared. The bottom line is we are moving, I think this is actually one of the most important things in the entire budget, and I just wanted to underscore this because it won't get a lot of play. We are moving to a professional management model that is consistent across this organization for all big projects, and it's something that we went into this budget seeing that that is the next move in being more strategic on how we implement.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm excited to hear that, and that will be great to watch happen. Just to highlight what we've been saying, and just to affirm, a lot of times when there is more efficiencies and people are working together, then you think you reduce your number of employees, but there's no reduction in employees because we're using them for more service oriented. I mean, to serve our residents in a greater capacity. So I just wanted to affirm that that's a good thing, that even that we're getting these efficiencies, that you're working together across areas, and that the savings in time and personnel is really being reinvested into the organization. Would that be correct to say something like that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, yes, thank you. Thank you for calling that out, and that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Yeah. So, and I think that's great because that's our goal.
Thank you.
Commissioner Carter.
I just wanted also to say thank you. This does appear to be an innovative move to address the needs of our organization and build up that expertise and, so that it can provide service to us into years to come. And I also think that it is an innovative practice that requires that you share what you are doing as we look into the future with the Association of Minnesota Counties and organizations who would be interested in governments taking this business approach to project management within its own space. I don't know if you've thought about it, but it could potentially be a revenue arm for our county for the future. So I'm not going to ask that question right now, but just encourage you to share. All right.
Entrepreneur.
Well, and
Enterprise
Do like
zone.
we do.
Always thinking. Well, I do think that it is really exciting as far as what we can accomplish. And because we are outcome oriented, that's what we run our budget on. And the fact is, there were many times when there were projects that were going on, and one department would accidentally find out that the other one was doing something and go, wait, we should be working together. And so that's the other thing that this does. It's not only the professional management, but it's organized so that you can leverage more of what you need across departments. It's not, and again, there's going to be things that are very specific that vendors certainly can be a part of that for services, for professional management services. But I think it also, in many ways, opens it up a little bit more so that we don't just have the same vendors all the time. But if you're taking on a smaller chunk of something, then you would have more opportunities for some of the smaller consulting firms as well. So to me, it's about the professional management and the organized management of making sure that we're getting the best that we can, the best outcome that we can. Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Property Tax Records and Election Services. Chris Samuel. The Chris Samuel.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Chris Samuel, the County Auditor Treasurer, the Director of Property Tax Records and Election Services. And thank you for the opportunity to talk about all the changes that are coming and the services that are being provided. It's really exciting times in terms of how we are reaching out and able to provide new services for our customers. County Manager O'Connor has talked quite a bit about change being a constant. And I think we really are seeing that and living it, and the pace of change is increasing. And we are seeing a number of initiatives that are transformative in terms of how we're providing services and with that residents' first focus that I think is just so important. In areas like elections and property tax, it's very important that we have the public trust and that we recognize that we're highly visible in those areas, and so making sure that in fact we have the proper safeguards in place and we get the right election results as part of the process, very important to that continuing trust. But as you heard Tara mention earlier, the IPR modernization has also had some tremendous impacts in terms of how we're doing business and what we're doing. And I would like to talk a little bit about that IPR modernization and the fact that when we're looking at this, we're focusing on organization and people, we're focusing on processes, and we're focusing on systems and tools. And I think as you take a look at the types of changes that we're implementing, you can see where they fit in those categories and how that modernization approach is getting us those excellent results by doing that in a systematic way. I'm going to start with elections because today is election day. And 2020 is going to be a very busy election year. We're going to have the presidential primary for the first time since 1991. It is a presidential election year. We're going to have a big primary in the fall as well. So we know that we're going to have at least 3 major elections, and there's at least some talk about some other special elections that might take place next year as well. So there was a sense, I think, at one time that when you talk about elections, isn't that one day a year? Or a couple days a year? And as you're probably well aware, the process of leading up to the election, and we now with early voting, you are able to vote 46 days before the election. There's prep work that we do before that point to get to the point where we actually have ballots, and so you can go through the voting process. And then once we cast, you go through the process of casting ballots, we then are accumulating the results and updating vote records. So in 2020, 190 days out of the year, of the business days, we will actually be in election activity for that year. So just to kind of put things in perspective, when you start adding in those additional elections, elections is one of those, especially for 2020, year-round activities, and this year, most of the year as well. We've talked a little bit about the expanded early voting. So the 46 days before the election, you can vote absentee or at one of our early vote centers. 7 days before the election, we will have a number of additional early vote centers that are available. We've got a very good partnership with the libraries and intend in 2020 to be making much greater use of those facilities. So you will see the early voting there. And we've also implemented targeting or pop-up voting. So the idea of recognition that there are certain populations, higher ground, St. Paul Gospel Mission, where there are transient populations that may need some additional assistance to make that connection and getting to the polls. And so we are looking at one-day events. Same thing with some of the colleges. So we are looking at the kind of the targeted pop-up voting as a model where we can provide election services to those populations that may need some additional help in getting their votes cast. And I do want to point out that one of the reasons we're able to do this is because of the voting system we have. We have the one system that's certified in Minnesota that allows you to use a single machine and vote for multiple precincts or run multiple ballots through that same machine. And so when we're talking about early voting, we're not saying, oh, come to the Shoreview Library and vote for the Shoreview races. You can vote for any Ramsey County race in that Shoreview Library location. And so you have that ability to not only where you live, where you work, what's convenient for you. That's what we mean when we're talking about early voting. You have that ability to vote for any race in the county early at any of those locations. One of the implications with early voting, this has really taken off. We have tens of thousands. I think it was over 40,000 in the 2018 elections of folks that voted early. And there are some implications of this that do show up in the budget. We had a number of years ago delegated absentee ballot authority to the cities. And what's happening is the cities are realizing they aren't staffed, nor are they really in a position to be able to handle the activity that we're generating now with early voting at their city halls. And so we're taking that absentee voting back and focusing it at the early vote centers. And so we're at the point now where almost all of the city activities that are associated with absentee ballots we're absorbing, and that is now shown up as part of the county budget where we weren't necessarily seeing that previously. An additional piece is electronic poll pads. We are going to be doing major implementation this fall. We will, in 2020, have the first full rollout with electronic poll pads. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the old paper rosters that would be at the polling location, and you would line up based on your letter of the range of letters of the alphabet, and you would then sign up to be able to vote. Well, the electronic poll pads allow you to do that privately, and you don't have to get in line because the poll pads have every registered voter on them, and so it makes that process much more efficient. Now, a piece that you probably aren't aware of unless you're an election administrator, all those people that were voting early have to be reflected in those rosters. So back in the day, if you would come to our office around election time, you would hear dunk, 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 which was the people with the ink pads stamping that a particular voter had voted absentee or voted early on all those paper rosters. And think about what was happening there with that Monday before elections. We had people voting on extended hours. So we had crews here until after midnight stamping the rosters to make sure that all that information was available then for the election judges to pick up the next day in the polling locations. Electronic poll pads makes that all go away. It gives us that ability to send the poll pads actually out and make them available for the election judges sooner than the day of election, and reflecting all those changes or updates in terms of who's voted as part of the process. And additionally, after the election, you have to vote or change all the records to show who actually voted. So you have that information as part of the vote record, which used to be a much more manual process. And now with electronic poll pads, we're able to do a transfer of that data, or working on being able to do that, transfer that data to the Secretary of State system to update the vote record. So huge changes in a number of areas from a logistical standpoint that our customers will see, but it also allows our knowledgeable election folks to be more focused on those customer needs as opposed to stamping a roster or performing other tasks there that they used to do previously and the poll pads will now handle.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes, Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to wait, but I want to ask this question. So when you first started talking about electronic poll pads, I was thinking, you know, that everyone gets or that when people come in, they get a computer to vote. But are you talking about system-wide it's going to be electronically operated? Or are there going to be, instead of a paper ballot, they're going to get a poll pad? Could you just give me a bit more of an explanation on how this is going to work? And is it everywhere? Will every site have these?
Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, this is not the ballot itself.
Okay.
You will still be voting a paper ballot as you have in the past. This will be the registration process. So when you came in and would sign in to vote, the poll pads handle that function.
I see. I was thinking that was going to be how you voted. There's a technology that you can vote on a poll pad, right? We're not there quite yet, right?
That's actually not a Minnesota approach or a Minnesota sanctioned approach. It's an interesting piece when you start getting into the history of elections. There are parts of the country where voting electronically is the only safe way, and there are other areas where voting paper is the only safe way, and a lot of it has to do with the history and events that have happened in those areas as to what's deemed acceptable. I believe the paper approach that we use here is the best way, but I'm biased in that regard.
Thank you, Madam
Having a
Chair.
paper trail.
And there is a paper trail,
Yeah.
and you can recount. And
Yes.
Our folks have been very active in community engagement. And part of this is going to the goals we had shared with you previously, where we recognize that there are areas, particularly in those areas of concentrated racial poverty, that have low voter turnout. And the fact that those areas have low turnout ultimately impacts what resources they get from government and how they're recognized and whether they're recognized as part of that process. It becomes, in some respects, a self-fulfilling prophecy to the extent that you don't vote, the elected officials don't come to see you, which causes them not necessarily to want to vote because they feel disconnected. And so we've been actively working on community engagement to reach out to those areas and to remove barriers that have been in place for those that have prevented people from voting. One of our goals was to have 10,000 new registered voters in the 2018 elections. We had 13,000. And I think a key there is when you take a look at the precinct that we've been using that has had traditionally low turnout, that area had been at about 54, 55%, and it was at 71% in the 2018 election. So we're seeing an impact and a dramatic impact in some of those areas that we are focusing on and where we wanted to see those benefits. Our goal for 2020 is 300,000 voters for the first time in the county's history. That's a big lift. That's part of what we're working towards is 300,000 voters for 2020. And the way we're getting here is by working with policy and planning and the project management office and contracts with the community groups and the schools to reach out in multiple ways, multiple media. We had talked originally about where the discussion started was mailings, and it's like, why go with mailings? We need to be in social media. We need to be reaching out to the young voters in a way that has meaning. And so we're very consciously and focused and intentional about what we're doing in terms of how we're getting the messages out in a number of ways that we have not previously. One offshoot of this community engagement process is recruiting bilingual judges and a more diverse election judge base to have be more welcoming at the polls. And have the folks that are serving as election judges represent the people, the voters that we have coming to those polling locations. And we intend in 2020 to be actively using student election judges extensively again. That program has worked very well, and we're finding that that is a group that has those bilingual skills and is a very diverse base, and we're seeing very positive results from those efforts. I do want to talk just real briefly about the budget because there are some unusual pieces there with the elections budget. There's bumpiness. That's a term of art, I guess.
Tell us what page you're on.
Bumpiness.
Tell us the page.
Starting on page 120 is where the materials are. And when you take a look at the county election budget, I've mentioned that there are a number of the additional costs that come into play. We're absorbing absentee ballot costs, we're opening up early vote centers, and you have the additional costs associated with conducting the presidential election as well as the federal elections that take place in 2020. And historically, those additional costs associated with those even year elections have been covered from fund balance. So there isn't an additional levy associated with them because it's a reflection of, in some respects, it's more like one-time costs that occur every other year associated with that particular election. And so that has been our traditional path in terms of how those election increases are funded, and that's the path that we continued in this budget. There is a piece there as well, a revenue source for reimbursement for the presidential primary. We are actually going to be taking over the presidential primary duties from a number of the cities. They've actually asked us to do that as part of the process so that we can coordinate all the presidential primary activity, and then we would then turn in a claim to the state for reimbursement. And that's a piece that's actually currently in negotiation as to what that amount would be. Ultimately, any amount associated with the presidential primary not paid by the reimbursement from the state is covered through fund balance. There's also some bumpiness as it relates to our suburban and city election processes. You're probably aware we provide county election services to all the cities and schools, actually 75% of the cities and schools, most of the cities in all but one school district. And those are handled as two-year election projects that show up in the odd year. And so again, there is some bumpiness that you see in the budget overall numbers because the elections projects show up in those odd years, and then you would not see them in the even years when you're taking a look at your overall numbers. Redistricting is an activity that comes up every 10 years, and that is in the 2021 budget, and we have funding there coming from fund balance. There is a portion of those funds that need to be made available to the cities and schools for their redistricting efforts, and so that's all included there as part of the budget proposal. And I do want to do a big shout out to our election staff. We are going through a transition at this point, and I think they're doing very well, and we are seeing every single one of our election staff stepping up into new roles in different ways and doing a fabulous job. So I'd like to call out Dave Triplett and Christina and the rest of the staff for the wonderful work they're doing in elections. It's exciting times.
Commissioner Carter.
Just a quick question on the redistricting and the sharing with cities and schools for the work that they do. What is the work that schools do for redistricting?
You are correct, it's primarily cities.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember, I don't believe any of our school districts are set up by individual voting locations, so
I thought I might be missing it, though.
No.
Thanks.
However, we do have the joint City of St. Paul, Ramsey County Complete Count Committee, and there are activities that are new to this cycle than what we've done in the past. And education is one of them. And primarily, whether it's a business sector, the school education sector, whatever it happens to be, we're trying to figure out ways to target the educational materials. Sometimes and there's multi-languages and different abilities as far as how we get the information out. So I think that the schools and the business sector, I mean, everybody is more involved this time around than they have been in the past. And Jollywood
On
is
the
the,
promotion and.
yes, and so they will play a role, but it's not the mechanical role
Not
or
the back
the
end.
technology role that the county and cities play.
Right.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. And so on that, is this the budget that will see any additional work that we're doing for the census? I know the feds give some money, but not much. The state's giving some money to help with the census. And are we putting money into the count? And where is that in this budget? Is it under elections or will it be under something else?
Okay, who wants to answer?
Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, the census work is not included here, but we are actively coordinating with the census group. So when we're looking at the community engagement efforts, we are doing joint messaging with the community groups and with the schools, both census and getting out the vote and voter registration as part of that process. And I believe the census work is in policy and planning.
Yeah, Madam Chair, the census work is
okay.
in 2019, actually,
Okay.
because as Commissioner Reinhardt mentioned, it's ongoing.
Yeah.
So it won't be reflected necessarily in here.
Okay.
There were 29 allocations out of some of our strategic planning money that went to policy and planning in tight partnership with other areas across the county.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate that. Can I ask another question or?
Yes,
Does
absolutely.
Tony still have the floor?
No, no, go for it.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Goyer.
Thank you. Elections are so important, and thank you and the staff for all of the great work that you're doing. Just a couple of clarifying questions. You said that you're going to take over most of the absentee balloting for the cities because it
Correct.
gets to be a lot, because we all know that a lot of people want to get this really important citizen responsibility done. You know, they want to do it early. And so is there going to be any absentee ballots at any of the cities, or are we taking all of it on?
Madam
I just
Chair,
want to be clear when I talk to my cities, you know.
Yep, Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, we have not gotten to the point of doing all.
Okay.
We have some that are very passionate about providing that service to their
Right,
cities,
right.
and we're okay with that at this point.
Okay, so we'll just check that out. Thank you. And one more question, Madam Chair. In the past, and you've alluded to this a little bit, but just if you could clarify, we've had some issues with connecting our technology with the Secretary of State's, like on election night, you know, making sure that our computers are compatibly, connecting all the dots and recording all the numbers in a timely fashion. How are we ensuring that that's not going to happen today and other days, or that we're in line with getting those numbers as accurately as possible in as timely a way as possible?
Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, there actually have been a multiple of
Just want you to
efforts that
say
are
it out
underway.
loud, right?
And
Just for everyone's benefit.
we actually have a conference of the Davids. There's actually David Maeda at the Secretary of State's office and Dave Magnuson at our software vendor and David Triplett. We are actually going to run through a test election while all three are in the same location, seeing the same results, to make sure that, in fact, we identify any issues. We have been pursuing, actually have just heard that there were some issues with the software that has been recognized, and those corrections have now been certified at the federal level and at the state level. We will not be implementing them for today's election,
It's okay. I'm
but
assuming we can.
they should be in place for this fall. And I think that's an important piece to realize in all this discussion about election security. We don't implement, nor can we implement, a system that isn't certified, and that's across any changes. So if there's a change to the firmware, if there's a change to the operating system, if there's a change to the software itself, it all has to go through a very detailed certification process before we're even allowed to use it. And so we recognize and follow all those rules to make sure that we have a secure election.
Thank you.
And I can tell you that I know that there are a multitude of changes that have taken place after the election for the city of Maplewood. And there were a lot of things that were small things. Some, I mean, some of the things that you're talking about are major changes that are taking place clearly. But some of the small things that just ensure the accuracy and so forth. And that was under the leadership of Deputy County Manager Francois, who wants to speak right now.
I just, Madam Chair, wanted to say that we're going to be bringing a lot more information to you in a workshop this fall with the election staff.
That's exciting. Thank you.
It is.
I can hold a lot of my questions till then.
Okay.
That's great.
Commissioner Modis Castillo.
I think you just answered my question, but I'll ask it one more time anyway. Talking about election security, I didn't see any line items for funding for election security. Is that because we're updating our technology and that's covering it, or is there some other part to election security? Is there a cost to it?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Modis Castillo, there certainly is a cost for security, and you may remember that there was an election, or there was an item of funding that was included in the last legislative session specifically for security, and the Secretary of State's office is using that to add a lot of additional safeguards to the voter registration system, which is one of those areas that is of risk. We have gone through Homeland Security audit of both our location and our equipment and our setup. And so that's part of information that you'll be getting in much more detail as we start getting the findings back from that process. But we take this election security very seriously, and there isn't necessarily an additional cost associated with that. Now, some of their findings may generate some costs, but they're not built into the budget right at this point.
Thank you.
I do want to, you earlier said you were talking about people voting and the how funds are allocated. And I meant to say it at the time, but I want to say it now, is that what makes the difference in what is allocated, the primary change or difference in that is when it comes to the census. Now, the other part of it is the census does have an impact on representation and voting, the number of people in your state, in your county, and who's counted. And so therefore, it does make a difference, especially at the federal level, whether we have 8 or 7 congresspeople. So there are a lot of things, but it's not the actual voting that determines where the allocation goes. It's the census that determines how many people you get to vote for, if that makes sense. So it's connected, but it's not. It's really about the census as far as resource allocation. Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to property taxes real quickly. Tara mentioned about the significant changes that are happening as part of the unified team. So if you take a look at the property tax records and election service budget, there's a dramatic drop in personnel and in revenue and expenditures associated with that shift, but recognizing that it is a shift then to the unified team as part of the admin budget. I want to take a moment to talk about compassionate regulation. And this is a recognition that there are a number of things that we're required to do by statute, but that doesn't mean that we should lose sight of the human being on the other side of the transaction. And when we're dealing with areas like delinquent taxes and tax forfeiture, we are dealing with people in distress and in danger of losing their properties, and how we react with them and recognize their needs and not only provide the services they need, but look at what are the additional services they may need that can help them in that situation. And this is what I look at from the whole concept of compassionate regulation. And so we have worked with our partners across the service team and as well as in the community to put together a service catalog that in the next delinquency round we'll be offering as part of the mailings, so that we'll be looking at then what are those additional services, whether they be legal, whether they be financial planning, whether it be any number of those areas where we're not just saying, oh, you owe taxes, if you don't pay up, we're going to take your property. It's, here's some additional things that and vetted services that may help you in this process, and we want to help you as part of that process. We have applied the compassionate regulation lens to repurchases. You probably remember the 2017 policy changes we made where we provided additional focus there, allowing folks to retain the equity in their property and yet making sure that they got to a safe location as opposed to staying in a house that was not safe. And so that's, again, the compassionate regulation piece. There's things that we need to do, but there's how we do it can change. And it's not necessarily a budgetary item, but it has a great impact in terms of how we provide services. We are replacing the tax system. This is my sixth last. Huge lift.
Yeah.
We tend to look at these systems, over a 5 to 10 year period.
Okay.
I'm not announcing anything or doing anything.
Good answer.
It's just property tax systems are a big lift, and we have started implementing the system in July, and the system will go live in third quarter 2021. So we are talking about a 2-year time frame for getting that system up and running. And that's going to be a major lift for all our property tax experts and others to get that point and have a smooth transition. But we are, this is a system that ties very closely to the system that the appraiser's office has used for computer system mass appraisal for valuing property. So we're going to have all kinds of opportunities there for efficiencies and integrations and connecting data in a way that we have not previously. And so looking forward to that.
Does that impact, because I think right now, don't we do the property taxes as far as the statements that come out and so forth for Washington County and others? Is that going to change?
It will not. What we are doing now will happen, but better in the new system. That we actually have the opportunity in that Scott County, Anoka, Dakota, Olmsted either already do use this system or will be implemented on the system by the time that we go live. So we're going to have the opportunity there and already are having user group discussions in terms of collaborating and how we support the system. Because that type of joint effort in a system as complicated as property taxes is really important to have a kind of an all-star team of experts across the counties helping to support and support the system.
Commissioner Carter.
And since you pre-announced that it may be your last system, it's good to know that it is very capable and hardy and can endure into many years to come. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, and
Commissioner McGuire.
thank you. And rather than this being an announcement of your retirement, you're just hoping that this system lasts for a long time and that you aren't going to need it to be revising this anytime soon. So we're happy to hear that.
Exactly. I would want this system to last because we have so many other things that we want to be focused on. And in some respects, a property tax system is kind of like infrastructure. You need it to be working well and generating the revenue that all the governmental agencies depend on. And the fact that it's is not visible is actually sometimes a good thing. You want the property tax system to be transparent, but the system should make it easy and should.
Go ahead, Commissioner McGuire.
While we're talking about property taxes, so one of my concerns has been that we send out the property tax statements, valuation statements, without anything being due, and that's when you're supposed to appeal your value at that point. But most people want to appeal it when they have to pay their taxes because they're not making that connection. Is there anything that we're doing with this new system that can help with any of that? Because there's a little bit of a disconnect with the public, and I know we need to, educate them more that now's the time, and I think you are putting that loud and clear on their valuation form. Now's the time to appeal. Don't do it. It's too late to appeal it when you actually have to pay it. But Is there anything we're doing to help with that, or we just keep trying to educate the public?
Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, it is an education issue.
Yeah.
The system doesn't necessarily lend to that, but you probably have heard us be much more succinct in terms of how we're talking about this. Now is the time.
Yeah.
And try to reinforce that every year, because once you get to the time that tax statements are sent out, it is, for all practical purposes, too late to appeal the taxes at this point. So if you haven't paid attention up until that point, so any of those that are watching, that when you get your value notice, that's the time to appeal. And it's a very informal process, especially when the value notices go out with an open book where you can just say, I want to know more about my value, or I'm not sure this is right, and the appraisers are happy to have that discussion with you. But the longer you wait, the more involved or more formal the process becomes associated with values and valuation appeals. So it is behooves you well to pay attention when you get the notice and to take action right away if you've got concerns.
Thank you so much.
Which month did they come out?
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Which month?
They come out in March.
They come out in March, and then your property tax statement, the first one will come out?
That also comes out in March. They actually come out together in the same envelope.
No.
The value notice.
Oh, the value is for the following year, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So they come out in the same envelope, and it is the value notice for the following year
Yes.
and the tax statement for the current year.
Oh, gosh. That's it.
So,
Oh, well, then it's.
okay, so people look for that in March. They'll see the one part, but
see
they
the
really
one,
need to
yeah.
notice the valuation statement. And make, if they have, if they want to appeal it, that is the time.
I want to talk a little bit about some items from the county treasurer's side. Recognition that we have a wide range of different receipting operations around the county. Some fairly sophisticated systems that are in place to the equivalent of electronic cigar box. And what we need is something that is much more consistent across all the departments with a common system. And so we are in the process right now of selecting a vendor to bring in that system so that we have a common receipting system that will talk well with our county's accounting system, and that will allow us to de-risk the receipting operations, establish best practices, a lot of the pieces that we need across our receipting operations across the county. And an additional piece to this is an online payment portal. You may not realize that we currently have an online payment portal for property taxes. And because of that, you can pay up to 73% of all the money we take in, because property taxes is so much of the money that we take in. But you don't have that ability for the high volume transactions that are occurring in a lot of the other departments. And there's that demand out there and the request out there for those types of services. So built into the enterprise cashiering receipting management system is a central online payment portal that will allow any of the departments or customers of any of the departments to pay at the time and in the method of their choosing for any item that's owed to the county. And so that's part of the system that we're working towards, is to be able to, I know I've heard from several of you in the past about, well, why can't we do this in terms of this payment method? That's where we're going in expanding those services from the county treasurer's side.
And Chris, I know that one of the things, even with the property taxes, is we are not allowed to, for example, when you go to a store and you buy something, the company, the store, pays a fee for a credit card transaction, which they've, of course, absorbed into the price that they put on a product. But we can't do that because it's property taxes, so it's not selling a product, it's making a payment. And how is that going to, so it's a percentage that has to be paid on top of the property taxes. So how does that work with the other potential payments? Because I would think it would be the same.
There are some of our other types of services where we could not offer a discount. And so we would be requiring that amount be paid, the merchant fee be paid in addition to the cost that's being charged. But there are others where we could, in fact we are having credit card transactions where that merchant fee is being paid by the county as opposed to by. And so what
Okay.
we are looking at is a system that has the flexibility to handle both, and ideally to handle both as part of the same transaction. And so that's, we are taking that into account, where there are certain types of charges where you cannot discount, where you have to pay that merchant fee in addition to.
And there are other ways to, that's just with credit cards, there are other ways to do it where there isn't a fee or a much smaller fee as well, so.
The vendor we're working with is also getting into Apple Pay and all kinds, Google Pay and all kinds of additional payment methods that are far beyond where we are, and they've even been talking about. And so it's exciting in terms of what we're going to be able to offer. But that's also an effort that's going to be taking place here over the next couple of years. And I do want to mention, as far as the budget is concerned, for the tax system replacement and the ECRM project, those are not amounts that are in addition to the budget. Because they are currently at a project stage. When we start getting to the 2023, 2024 budget, that's where we may have operational expenses coming into play. But right now, looking at 2020, 2021, they're not reflected as part of the budget numbers that we're looking at. Lastly, Commissioner Ortega, you'd raised a couple questions at the budget rollout relating to what's the right mix of properties to show resiliency, and also what information do we have in terms of displacement. Really like the questions. We've got a lot of good ideas as to how to, information that we can provide. Some of it's readily available. Some of it we need to look at more. And so that will come back to you as part of the response later on in the budget process, where we respond to questions. So just to know, we have tracked those questions. They are part of what we will be responding to, and you'll get that as part of the budget process.
Excellent.
And with that, I stand for any more questions.
Okay, I need to follow up on the last thing that you said, actually. Okay, the questions are going to be followed up on in an email? I mean, how, because the budget hearings are where we get a lot of the information, but and I do know that there are many times that there's information that just simply can't be provided on the spot. And so when you share the information, you will share it to the entire county board?
Correct.
The question and the response. Okay.
Madam Chair, just as a clarification of that, generally what the approach has been, whatever questions come up that don't get answered on the spot, the staff, they send them to finance. Finance then consolidates them all, sends them to all commissioners as part of ongoing budget answers to questions. So whatever questions need to get answered, department to finance, finance will send it out to everybody.
And Madam Chair, I'll add on top of that, and we made that available in the last budget cycle, I believe, as a part of the budget documentation then on the back end, so that if people are looking at that information, it's available post-budget for the public as well.
Yes. Excellent. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was clarified. Okay, Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming back from vacation to be here. You certainly
yes.
was great to have you here to answer all these questions. And I just want to say thanks that you started out your presentation by saying that the changes were exciting. And you are, what a great attitude, because you are dealing with these amazing areas of outward-facing work that the county does with property taxes, elections, and just thank you and your staff for embracing the changes are exciting, and we know that change is constant, as our county manager says, and there's a great book that says change is certain, growth is optional, and I would just say that I think you're all embracing that change and growing in a way that we are really proud of, so thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Carter.
Yes, and thanks again for growing with the change. I want to just reflect on the fact that as you have come forward and shared the potential of a payment or electronic or countywide receipts management system, whatever you call it, you know, I think that that's amazing, and it's a great opportunity for us countywide. And to hear that coming out of one area and applying, you know, across the county is, I think, a result of the enterprise-wide thinking, you know, and the service team orientation. I'd like to ask you if you from your seat, also share perspective on the difference that it is making that you have team-wide services, and even to the extent of administration now, moving out of your area into a unified team that serves you. Could you just reflect on what that has meant to you or how that has impacted your team? Positive, other reflections as well?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Carter, positive, absolutely. And it allows us to focus in a way that I think helps us provide and focus on the needs of our customers in a way that kind of could get lost before. And especially when you're dealing with something on unified team with that very, the combined focus across the disciplines. We realize that it should not be, it should be transparent to the customer when they're asking the question.
At one window, huh?
At one door. That it shouldn't be a, well, hold on, I'll transfer you, or I'll transfer you, which too often was an activity that happened in the past, and none of us were happy with that type of service. And so with Unified Team, it gives you that ability to do the knowledge articles and the cross-training, and as well as to respond more nimbly. So you realize that, you know, I'm getting this type of phone call. Maybe we should get something out on the web. Maybe we should put a knowledge article out here and get the message out to all our folks. Maybe we should put something out on the phone line. Maybe we should do a blast on social media. You know, there's all kinds of things that when you have that type of focus in terms of the activity directly to the customer, that you have those opportunities that you don't necessarily when you're more segmented in terms of our handling those functions.
Thank you for the reflection. I appreciate it.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
And enjoy the rest of your vacation.
What's your vacation reading there?
All right.
I love it.
Good deal.
Okay, what I'd like to do.
Close by, huh?
What I'd like to do right now is to take about a 5-minute break and then come back refreshed, and then we will go to the county assessor, Louis Rosario. And should we try to make it 5 minutes?
5 minutes, okay.
I'd like to call the Budget Committee of the Whole back to order, and we will move on then to the County Assessor's Office and Luis Rosario. Hello.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today about the 2020-2021 budget. My name is Luis Rosario, the Ramsey County Assessor. My plan this afternoon is to provide an overview of the Ramsey County Assessor's Department, which begins on page 108. Discuss changes in budget, where we are with community engagement, race equity, briefly highlight a few department challenges and opportunities. County Assessor's Department estimates market value and determines property classification for property tax purposes. The department must provide accurate, equitable valuation and classification for all real and taxable personal property located in Ramsey County every assessment year. Our staff maintains property field records, sales information, and are responsible for processing and maintaining all homestead filings and records. The department uses a computerized mass appraisal system which assists in valuing properties. We strive to serve all our residents competently, quickly, efficiently, and fairly. We maintain accurate electronic parcel data and map records. Our office will vigorously defend an appeal of an assessment, but also will be willing to make an adjustment when it's warranted. We should always be the Assessor's Department that earns and maintains the public's confidence and trust. The Assessor's Department continues to work to improve and enhance communication with our residents and our community. We have meetings with local business organizations, residents for condo associations, neighborhood groups. The Assessor's Department will participate in the RPR Service Team Community Engagement Action Team. The Assessor's Department is striving to ensure that we are competitive employers who can recruit and retain excellence. One of the opportunities we've been able to offer in the Assessor's Department is the internship program to residents in our community with focus on hiring students of color. Most of our interns come from local colleges such as Metro State. We believe our department's diverse workplace should be comparative to the county's diverse population. We currently have in our office 4 employees that have been hired full-time that started in our internship program. All are people of color. All are bilingual. The Assessor's Department has interns from the Project from Pride in Living Appraisal Pathway program, and we have had summer interns from high schools through the CLUES program that have shadowed our office. The County Assessor Department looks forward to integrating our current internship program with the county-wide internship program in 2020 and 2021. The County Assessor's Department will also continue to participate in the Service Team Racial Equity Action Team. Some of the challenges that may impact my department are, as we hire new employees, we need to make sure knowledge is transferred to them with those employees with highly specialized institutional skill sets. And since 2018, we had 5 staff that retired and 2 that left for advancements in other counties. Some of the department's work volume is tied to activities that are greatly influenced by market and economic conditions. The timing of these changes is difficult to predict. The Assessor's Department must be nimble and respond to market changes and efficiently use technology to meet these challenges. Opportunities that may impact my department. In alignment with residents' first priority, the Assessor's Department will shift 8 full-time employees to IPR admin for the unified team. This is key to making residents first top priority, improving services, service delivery, and improving the residents' and the employees' experience. Also, the Assessor's Department received 2 full-time employees in 2019, and we were able to hire 2 very experienced senior commercial appraisers this year. This was made possible with the creation of the new commercial job descriptions approved by the board in 2018. We are very grateful for those 2 full-time employees. Thank you very much. The County Assessor's Department has been impacted by the IPR modernization program in the following ways. The field mobile device helps us meet our statutory requirement, reviewing approximately 30,000 parcels a year. This allows property data to be verified and captured quickly. The other major impact of the field mobile device is that it allows our appraisers to come out to our residents anywhere in the county. Interactive street-level photography, which provides integrated layers of high-resolution digital street-level photography, This allows for more direct and accurate measurement capabilities. And ECRV, which is Electronic Certificate of Real Estate Value Connect system, that's a streamline that the clerical portion, by automating the sales review process from the beginning to the end. Ramsey County is the first of 87 counties to fully leverage and upload-download functionality provided by the state system. It improves on data accuracy while eliminating the majority of data entry and ensures the information is available more quickly to our residents. All of these modernization programs will help us be more efficient in 2020 and 2021, and it will allow more time for continuing improving customer-facing activities. I want to thank you for the modernization program and also for the support you've given the Ramsey County Assessors Department. As one of my student interns said, the Assessor's Office is a really awesome place to work, and I agree. I'm open for questions.
Other questions? Commissioner
You don't
McGuire.
have to always call on me first, but I'll raise my hand.
Well, if you raise your hand first,
Thank
I
you,
will.
yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. I always say this is my favorite time of year, so I get to ask all my questions and get some more information on the good work that you're doing. And it's times like this when I'm excited that we get to appoint our county assessor, and so we can have people like you in that position. This is a question that I was just thinking of as you were talking, because I know that, we all do hear from people when the tax statements come out, that their taxes have gone up for some reason, whether it's the levy or whether it's the value of their house. So their house has been assessed at a higher value because they've maybe done some improvements to it and they didn't remember that they did some improvements to it. And I'm just curious if you've worked with our cities, if many times these homeowners have to get zoning changes or something through the city, right? Do they have to get variances from the city? Do we work with our cities to say, okay, you're going to get this variance, you're going to do this home improvement, your taxes may go up because you're improving the value of your home? Do we ever do something like that by just helping our residents understand the implications of their improvements? I mean, we're glad they're improving it, but it may have some implications on their taxes. Just curious.
So, Madam Chair, Commissioner, we work directly with the cities on any permit that comes through our office, and we get them every year. So if it's new construction or remodel of a basement, and that gets approved by the city. So it goes through the city and then it gets sent to our office. So yes, we do work with, and normally a property owner will call and ask, hey, I'm gonna make this improvement to my house. How's that gonna affect my value?
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, it's good that they do that. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? I love the theme that's happening so far through these departments and through the service team of how the modernization, it was a long time coming, but we are getting there, and what a difference it's making in the workload and what people are learning and how they are implementing. The compassionate regulation. I'm going to say that over and over again. I love it. Yeah, because that's really what it's about. When you talk about residents first, that's what it's about. That's right. So, seeing no further questions, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
And next we have John Sickveland, who will talk about communications and public relations and talk about places where there's lots of changes happening and how it has truly been modernized under your leadership. I'll turn it over to you, John.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm John Sickveland, the Director of Communications and Public Relations here at Ramsey County, and thanks for the opportunity to present here to you this afternoon. We start on page 78 of your book, if you wanted to turn to that page. So as you may recall, hopping in a time machine 6 months ago, came before you with a request for board action to initiate a new department here at Ramsey County, and this is the Department of Communications and Public Relations. And as a refresher, this is made up of our Communications Division, our Government Relations Division, and our administrative and budgetary relationships with our partner organizations, the Ramsey County Historical Society and the U of M Extension Service in Ramsey County. So as you look through your budget packets there, those are the divisions and the organizations that you will see reflected in the line items there. I'll start with an executive summary just on the funding since we're at a budget hearing here. So for the divisions of communications, government relations, and for the Ramsey County Historical Society, we are not bringing forward any new initiatives for funding other than the inflationary increase that the county manager is proposing for all county departments. When it comes to the U of M Extension Service, we are making requests to expand and build on the work that we've done with 4-H in Ramsey County through them. So we're requesting funding that will help to support a program outreach person and an administrative function there to support those local Ramsey County 4-H clubs. These are nearly 20 clubs that serve almost 500 youth, many of them at risk, and a network of adult volunteers and community partner organizations that work to support this local 4-H programming in Ramsey County. As you know, as the only fully urbanized county in Minnesota, 4-H looks a little different for us, and we often refer to it as urban 4-H. This is programming that helps youth with mentorship opportunities, with job training and workforce training, and other types of services through their programming here in Ramsey County. So talking to our partners at the U of M Extension Service about this, you can imagine they are looking forward to moving forward in this direction and have already been doing so in recent years. So I wanted to line that out as part of the executive summary, and then I'd like to get into a little bit of what we are doing and what we're going to be doing in our other areas. Yes.
County Manager O'Connor.
Madam Chair, if I could just add to what Director Sicklin just mentioned as well. I think, so what that is an example of is on the conversation we had the first day about the innovation coming from service teams pieces. For a long time, we've evaluated our relationship with Urban 4-H and what does that look like with the Extension Office and how does it play in Ramsey County. And as we've talked about residents first, service delivery, racial equity, programming that meets at the heart of it, this is one of those initiatives that through that process rose up in a way that in the past, under the operational way, we had the department by department approach. It struggled to illuminate. I just want to pause on it because it's actually a really good example and a good story. They won't tell it the same way because from their end, they're just seeing expansions and partnerships in good ways. And that's a kudos to John and his team and Karen and the entire service team for really raising that profile as we went through the process.
And on that,
Commissioner
thank
McGuire.
you, Madam Chair, and Commissioner Reinhardt and I are lucky to serve on the Extension Committee, so we get to hear even more intimate, even more details about this great program. And I believe this is one that we also do across service teams because we do it in conjunction with our libraries, right?
That's
this
correct.
Is also this is done through that. So we like to see the cross service area work that you're doing too. So thank you.
Well, and Extension still has contracts with or works with the libraries, but also with public health,
And yes,
environmental health.
Yeah, all the, yes.
And so there are a lot of different places, but this is something that we have really wanted for quite some time as far as the recognition of what 4-H does and actually having someone that there's a contact person and can really do this in a more organized way because you're right, it's right down to equity.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, thank you for pointing that out. That's correct, that this support for Urban 4-H is separate than the grant that Ramsey County provides for the services of the library with Extension and separate from the grant that we provide through environmental health / public health for the Master Gardener program.
Yes. So it's an addition.
It's an addition. We love that. Great.
So turning to where we've been and where we're going, I want to start with our communications division. So in short, our job is to keep our residents, businesses, visitors, employees, and partners up to date on what we do hour by hour and minute to minute here at Ramsey County, whether that is a new job opening with us, whether it's a new policy or program, a road project, whether it's explaining how that valuation process works early in the year and to make sure that now is the time to make a call to Luis and his staff to talk about your value, or if it's a very highly targeted Facebook post in Spanish to particular demographics. That's the work that the communications division works to serve our partner departments throughout the county and doing that work every day. We strive to provide timely and relevant information to our audiences through all means. We want to meet our residents, visitors, businesses where they're at. And so what that's looked like over the past few years is a movement towards a digital first approach, which is using all of those powerful tools we have from our website, our social media channels, to make sure that we are engaging folks where they're at and in the ways that they are looking for information. Our performance measures are largely tied to this, and we continue to hit and exceed our marks there. We have new records, a new record month this past July with 440,000 people taking advantage of our digital communications and viewing our messages almost 2.7 million times. We have 25,000 followers across 5 different social media channels. Our email lists exceed 101,000 people who are getting information from our General County newsletter on a monthly basis to messages about whether or not we have mulch currently at our yard waste sites. So many people interested in those topics that we provide via email. Our open data portal has more followers and data than ever before, including important data on finance reports, calls to the ECC, new data sets on beach testing, and many, many other data sets. In 2 short years, we've really become an industry leader of public sector organizations in this field of open data, and our team is working with the vendor to really drive forward the work for Ramsey County and peer organizations that are building up their data portals. Late in 2018, we were part of the our division was part of the modernization initiative that was expanded by Deputy County Manager Francois to information services, to communications, and to the project management office. And so this is an effort to go out and talk to our stakeholders and departments about our services. And we heard 3 things there. Number 1, we want more of what you're doing in communications. Number 2, we're not exactly sure always how to get your services. Do we use the help desk? Do we talk to you directly, John? Do we work with communications associate? And third, that service levels could be uneven between different departments as we continue this process of consolidation. So part of our focus going into 2020, 2021, and building on the consolidation with government relations and our partner agencies is to really create these specialized roles and communications to meet these needs. So we're committed to customer service, but we're also working on developing highly specialized roles in graphic design, which we've done, digital communications, which we've done, open data portal, which we've done, internal communications, to make sure that we can provide the best level of service for the need for our partner departments. Later this year, also, we'll be doing brown bags with departments to go and talk about the work we do and make sure that we can work with departments directly and their staffs to answer questions and make sure that everyone is fully aware of how to utilize what we offer in the communications division. Maybe I'll stand for questions on communications for a second before pivoting to government relations.
Commissioner Carter and then Commissioner Montes-Castillo.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that your team is providing services to so many and that there's so much need for communications assistance, and it's everything from media relations to promotions to materials and all of the above. I recall that when your department was created, we worked together to pull resources from other departments, to assign those back to departments, or to have the integrated work happening. And you mentioned just now a phrase that I'd just like to mine for a bit. You talked about your partner departments. And I just wanted to be sure to ask you if there's a distinction in terms of the manner in which you work closely with departments today, as opposed to generally across the entire enterprise. If you're charging for your services, or if all of that is combined into one countywide, and how do you prioritize? Because I know you've always been responsive. It takes sometimes a little bit of time, sometimes more, but you're always working to respond to the requests that come your way, I believe. So just stop on those questions. What are partner departments? Are you covering across the county? Are there charges for your services? How do you prioritize?
Great.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Carter, yes. All of the above. So if, again, hopping in the time machine, going back to 2017 when we consolidated those staff that were reporting up through operational departments into communications.
That wasn't when we created it. It was when we consolidated.
Yeah, we have been on an evolution to always make sure that part of the premise here is to make sure that we're maximizing how much work we can do. So really honestly, that factory floor aspect of communications. And since we consolidated, we've been able to use common techniques, templates, training, strategies to really wring out all of that value and provide communication services not only to the departments that bought in or those departments that had for years, sometimes in advance, worked on their own communications proficiencies, but we have been able to provide those communication services. As we found in the modernization survey, it's still not completely even. We're on that path. We continue to be on that path. Adding these specialized roles helps us to deliver for all of our departments. When I say partner departments, I'm referring to all of our departments across the county, and all of those initiatives that are part of service teams or multiple departments as well.
All right. And in terms of how you prioritize and manage to that, are there charges, additional charges for that work, and how do you prioritize?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Carter, it was a blend when we did our consolidation of transfers of FTEs and levy dollars and some chargebacks to funds. So for instance, for that work that we provide for the library, we will charge them and they pay that from the library levy, or for environmental health through the solid waste fund. So it is somewhat blended there. On the prioritization, we have staff who are assigned in each of the service teams to work with department directors and their staff to make sure that we are managing their needs, and really a focus of ours has been that customer service piece to make it really transparent what our priorities are, what to expect from us in terms of timelines and deliverables, and we're continuing to work on that now. In 2020-21, we're introducing a one-minute survey for our major projects that we deliver for departments that just gives us customer service score. So we start to have a benchmark and can use that in this process of continuous improvement that is one of those hallmarks of modernization.
But we can look to the relationship then to the service team and to the department directors to help identify, prioritize, and work through what costs might be.
That is absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Montes Castillo.
Yes, thank you for your great work of your whole department. I follow you on all your social media feeds, so I've counted at least probably 5 times, but you do really great work. The one thing I hear about a lot externally is people don't know Ramsey County's story, right? We're doing a lot of really amazing work that people just don't know about. And so if you're following on social media, you get little blips. But and so I wonder, and I'll, as the newbie ask this question, do you think, I know we're doing a balanced budget, but are you at capacity, or do you need more to do that work more? And I'm just thinking about, as we look into the future, how do we tell our story bigger, bolder? I'm crossing a line, I'm sure, but I just want to hear from you on how do we do that work?
Madam Chair and Commissioner, this is something that we talk about a lot in our leadership team, is that balance and making sure that we can tell not just the individual stories and share the individual piece of information, but really to bring all of that forward. So looking ahead as we did to the 2020-21 budget, we believe that we still have efficiencies to be gained from consolidation, and still there is work there where we can continue to expand. Not as much as it was in 2017, but it's still there. We're also, I didn't mention, we're going to be applying for funding through our internal technology fund for a website reset. So we call this a midlife overhaul. That gives us an opportunity to make sure that we are still being accessible and relevant with that technology. Okay.
That was fun. Like, we're all giggling about midlife overhaul. Yeah.
Midlife, right.
Yes.
I take it from my time at Metro Trains. We take a bus out of service and strip it apart. Midlife overhaul for the website. Yeah. We also, in 2020-21, are consolidating our contracts. So right now we're in the process of interviewing and working to award contracts both for an advertising marketing firm and a video services firm. So these would be contracts that the communications department holds, and we can apply when we have resources and needs from departments, from service teams, from countywide initiatives to utilize these expert resources. On the ad services contract, I'll just take a minute to say this has been a great partnership with our environmental health division. They have really led the charge, and they've had the funding to really make that education and promotion part of their work. You've seen their billboards, you've seen all of the work that we do to promote our recycling programs. So partnering with them, they're going to be sort of the ballast and the main entity that uses that contract, but now anyone at the county is that will be available to them. So if Veteran Services gets a grant, we can leverage that same contract to wring every penny out of those ad buys and make sure that we're extending our services and really telling our story to that level that you're asking about.
Thanks.
Ryan, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner Maniscalco, I think that the question raises a broader budget philosophical question. It's just good to answer now with the first service team, I think, which is clearly there could be need, and for the expansion side of services, the demand is great. The work coming out of this area is great. When laid against some of the residents first work that we prioritized alongside the innovation from service teams, it doesn't hit the same level in that prioritization that it would under potentially different prioritized pieces. And so said differently, I both acknowledge there are still opportunities to go further in how we describe our work outside of here, and I think John just described some of that, while also saying I think our bigger opportunity, the 2017 way you framed it a second ago for your department, is on the service delivery front-facing side to see the same leaps and bounds we've seen in the last few years in communications.
Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to echo my previous colleagues, Commissioner Carter and Commissioner Maniscalco, because I was going to go along the same lines of asking how it was going with the this consolidation, and then we would all like to tell our story in a greater way. So I appreciate County Manager's comments on that. One of my things I was going to ask about is our capacity to help out at community events. I think we're all there as commissioners, and we can be really strong allies with your department in sharing our story because we're out there all the time. But it's just one area that I think, I know you're already doing, the tabling and different things, but you do that in conjunction with departments. But I think that is a great residents first way that we can help our residents see what we do and how they can sign up for our services. So I don't know if you want to comment a little bit about the tabling that we're doing in the box, the Ramsey County box, but it's just some area that I'd like to see us keep doing more of.
Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, thank you for bringing that question forward. I did neglect to mention that in those specialty roles. So one of those specialty roles we've been able to add as we've, again, wrung some of the capacity out of this new organization with consolidation is a 50% outreach role. So this is a gentleman who's been on board with our team for just a few months now, and the dividends are already paying off. We have a continuum of service that we provide to our residents and to our county departments on the outreach side. So on this side of it is the full production of an event and coordination of an event, like our presence at the county fair, our presence at Rondo Days would be a couple of examples there. Organizing a public hearing, for instance, we did one a couple of years back in your district, Commissioner McDonough, that involved bringing a translator, putting together a program with our Public Works Department, finding the venue, all those sorts of things. On this side is that box that you mentioned, the community engagement kit or the community outreach kit that we have, which is just bringing together some of those materials that we should have on display no matter who is out talking with our residents, visitors, and businesses anytime, like our guide to services. So we make this available. We make our pop-up banners available, our branded tablecloths, so that we really look the part, and that we're able, even if it's in a veteran services engagement, we're able to provide other information about the span of things that we provide here at Ramsey County.
Thank you for talking about that.
Well, and I do think all of us know as we're out going door to door or in any public setting, the most commonly asked question is, what does a county commissioner do? And really what that comes down to is what I explain is what the county does and my role in that. Because most people, we've heard county government be called to the invisible level of government. And it's generally speaking because unless you, if something is not going right, you just take it for granted. You take for granted the libraries are going to be there and the stop sign of the stoplight's going to be there. The roads are going to be most often plowed. That we try to stay on top of all these things that you just take for granted unless it's not there. But one thing that you have really done, or what we have done in the modernization in this area and the consolidation, is to really be able to tell that story. I do think when I hear the words from a public entity, when I hear the words marketing and public relations, it kind of makes me cringe a little bit, because it's really about, when you talk about marketing or public relations, it's about the education that we provide, letting people know about opportunities and how to get to Tamarack or how to get to Battle Creek or wherever it may be. The trails that we have. I mean, you look at all of the opportunities that we have, and it's really, that is marketing. It's letting people know. And then gathering input. To me, when we put out to the budget, for example, one part of that is, okay, this is the budget and this is the initiatives that we're looking at, but how does the average person really get that information deeper? And to say, you know, go to the website and look at the budget is one thing, but the work that our communications area is doing is to give it more depth, I guess. What is it about? Not just what is the line item or the initiative, but what does it really mean to our residents? And we say residents first, what does it mean? And so, yes, that's public relations, and yes, it's marketing, but when it comes from the government sector, it's really about education, outreach, gathering of input so that we can make more informed decisions here, and responding. Because questions come up, and sometimes it's individual to our districts, but quite often it is something that comes through the chair or comes through communications because it affects everyone, and somebody's brought up a question, we need to respond to it. That's what it's about. So even though I know that we're going to continue to use those two words, or three words, I guess, marketing and public relations, to me, when it comes to the government sector, it's really about, I can't remember who said it, maybe it was Trista or, excuse me, but it's about telling our story so that people know what we're doing, not just know what we're doing, but know how they can access what we're doing. And that it's not something that's hidden or invisible, and it's not something that you need to turn to only in times of crisis, although we are there in times of crisis or concern. So I just had to say that because I think it's real. The work that you have done in this area over the past few years has been nothing short of phenomenal in trying to get this information out in a very professional manner, something that people go, you know, the brochure you had.
This one?
Yes. You know, I mean, people want to know how to access services, and quite often the problem is they just don't know how. And so the different formats that you have, the pop-ups, all of these different things didn't exist a few years ago. So I just wanted to say thank you, and how important it is that people really do know that it's residents first here. That is the bottom line. And the only way to do that is through communicating.
Thank you for your comments, Madam Chair. So we were talking about, I was going through our divisions of the Communications Public Relations Department. That's the summary of communications. I'll turn to government relations. So you may recall when I came before you in this forum last year, we were preparing for the retirement of longtime government relations director and looking ahead to the future. It was a time of change and a busy time, and it remains that way. Our new government relations director, Jen O'Rourke, has been doing a fantastic job with Claudia Brewington to look ahead to what is that next, what is the next generation of government relations look like at Ramsey County. And I know that you've all worked closely with Jen and know how terrific and responsive she and Claudia have been. They've been busy preparing our bonding request for the next session. They've been busy even starting to look at getting our legislative platform together. So without going into too much more detail, what you can expect next and the engagements with them are, we've done the bonding workshop. They're working with legislators on making a tour, and then starting that platform development where we'll come before you in another workshop in the fall, where we'll have that conversation about the legislative platform. And then finally, I'll turn to our partner organizations and these new relationships we have administratively with both the Historical Society and the Extension Service. So just for, again, hopping in the time machine real briefly, when the county went into the service team structure back in 2015, these important relationships, these are not county departments, but these are important relationships. We work closely with the Historical Society. We work closely with Extension in Ramsey County. And so the question was, where should they be? At the time, we moved them into the Economic Growth and Community Investment Service team, largely because of the relationships they have with property management. Talking with the county manager and the executive team about, is this really the right place for this? This is how we got to come before you about 6 months ago with this idea that, mostly what our residents, what our businesses and visitors see are that public relations facing, that education piece, as you mentioned, Madam Chair, the outreach piece of these two organizations, and working in the synergies that we have with our communications and government relations area. So we've already done a lot of work with the Historical Society. We contract them to do tours of this building and Union Depot, and they rallied their volunteer tour guides just this week, and we've got a new energy moving forward for how to conduct those tours. Very important community outreach program there. We're also working with them on creating some community-driven art that will help to increase the dialogue of our history in this room right here. We're working on narratives around our history and bringing new voices into that and using our tools and communications to share that with a broader audience. And then we're using our own communications resources to help to promote the programs that they have that are relevant to the same audience that we have that take advantage of our programs through our departments. So next up, with both the Historical Society and Extension Service, we've got a workshop scheduled for the afternoon of September the 24th, where we'll have an opportunity to visit with them and really talk in detail about what it is they're doing, what their vision is for the future. And that'll be a nice opportunity for a dialogue with both Chad Roberts, the president of the Historical Society, and Tammy McCullough, the director of Extension for this region, including Ramsey County. So with that, I think I'm happy to stand for questions.
Commissioner Modis Castillo.
Yeah, thank you, John. I want to just go back because I feel like we breezed over our government relations really fast. And just want to call out, 12.5% of our county budget comes from state dollars, and that wouldn't be possible without IGR. And so I know in our budget we've got our revenue estimated, and I think we're not telling that story well enough on the importance of that department, and it's just 2 people. So to really think about what that work is, what that looks like, and then how do we expand that? Because that's just the revenue in. That doesn't even account for the amount of work of policies, bad policies they might be preventing that could cost us more, good policies, that kind of approach. So I appreciate your rush, but I wanted to go back to IGR just a little bit. And again, to raise the idea is 2 enough? And what does that look like as we're moving forward in that department? Because to me, it's super important. I think a lot of people don't understand, why we have lobbyists as a county, but this is why, and it's really important.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Modis Castillo, I apologize if I gave short shrift to government relations in my, as I was trying to manage the clock there.
Yeah.
Certainly did not mean to do that. And you just look at the bonding proposals that we have this next session, and you can see right there the weight of how transformative the work of Claudia and Jen is to driving that work forward. They do have additional resources that they manage, which are contract firms that we have both at the state and federal level. And under Jen's leadership, they're really taking another look at how are we best utilizing those contracts to make sure that we're prioritized on what it is, whether it's a policy item, as you mentioned, or a bonding request, that we're ensuring to maximize the use of those contracts in serving the same priorities that are yours and that government relations is working to advance. So there are, and I should also mention that part of the consolidation with this new department is to be shoulder to shoulder with our communication staff so that we have the opportunity to present, to take those resources and help to tell that story, whether it's a bonding request, it's a policy story, whatever the format is. If it's a one-pager, if it's a news release, for instance, or communications for our own employees. I don't think that in the past 6 years we've talked to our own employees as much about the work of government relations as we have in the past 6 months. Right. So all of those things are accruing as resources that help to augment the work of the 2 small but very mighty staff.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner McGuire.
And just to follow up on that, in Thank you so much, Commissioner Manis-Castillo, for bringing that up. I was going to make a similar comment, and I appreciate what you did say about them, but right, it's a very small and mighty department, and I also ask on a regular basis, is it enough? You know, I'm, as the co-chairs of Legislative Committee, Commissioner Carter and I, we're saying, do we have enough, staff that's getting all the information we need in from the county and then out to our legislators? So I'm just going to put out there that I'm grateful to hear you talk about the communications staff that's helping with that. And I always ask, do you have enough administrative help to really help with all your meetings and to help with all the work that you've got going? So I'm just going to put that out there, that I really do think this is such an important department. It's so crucial in the work that we do. And I know they've got other contracts, and other people helping them, but I just really know that we couldn't do the work we do without that revenue source and that work that they're doing. So just, I don't know who's doing their administrative work, but I always am thinking that someone should be helping them out with that.
Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, just very briefly, Tara Bach talked about the realignment of our administration resources in information and public records. And that's just getting underway, but those are the resources that now are serving all of our departments and divisions, and that government relations and communications rely on to do that sort of administrative support for our kind of, let's call it, back office type of functions.
Okay, and I would just say, Madam Chair, that this is not anything that our government relations staff has asked me to say. I'm just doing it. They have not asked me to say this. Jen is cringing back there. Don't say it. She has not asked, but I just want her to make sure she's got the resources she needs to do the good work that she's doing. But she did not ask me to do that.
Well,
I know.
But again, when we look at the revenue coming in, that goes directly to residents' services.
Yes.
Whatever it is, that's so
Right.
that work it's a direct connect. Any other questions or comments for John?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and then we have the Rich Christensen, I'll get it yet. Information Services, if you could come up, and welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Madam Chair, Commissioners, Rich Christensen, the Chief Information Officer at Ramsey County and the Director of the Information Services Department. And if I may, just as a remark up front, started this position at the beginning of the year, and almost on my first day on the job, Lee Merkins was nice enough to come down and say to me, Rich, the budget cycle has started, and brought me into it very early and allowed me to get ingrained in the process up front, and has allowed myself and my team to really be able to get our budget out in the right fashion. So I'd like to thank Lee for that, and hope someday I can pay that forward to some other new leaders coming into the mix. So my piece of the discussion starts on page 90, and everything that we do starts with the highest role in the county achieving its strategic priorities and the mission of the county. So, this idea started with Deputy County Manager Francois earlier of the Great Enabler. We really see ourselves as a key part of enabling the Residents First initiative, especially with the accessible service delivery and the aspects of that related to the community outreach, et cetera. And so we work in concert with the PMO, with the capability teams that were mentioned earlier, right? We are part of that greater whole that builds and maintains the systems and the technology within the county. And so we do this, the Resident First work, especially with bringing collaboration tools to bear, bringing technologies that support a more mobile workforce, and then improving and increasing productivity of all the people involved so that we can really focus our energy on the services that we deliver as a county. So that's at the core of all of our work. So examples, looking forward into 2020 and 2021, having somebody out in the community and having them be able to just easily collaborate, communicate with somebody behind the scenes that can provide them the right information, the right answer in the moment that they're working with a, with a resident, right? So bringing those kind of collaboration tools to bear could add great value in that arena. More flexibility for mobile working. We're seeing that, in the methods we're looking at for facility design, in the way we're looking at accessible service delivery, where more of the workforce will have a mobile nature to it. So designing secure mobile platforms for those purposes. And as an example, in kind of the startup of this that will expand more so in the 2021 timeframe, working with Public Works, where you can picture a scenario where a construction site and a staff member is out there working with subs, and there's machinery, there's people all stacked up to do the work. When they come across some issue, it requires access to large CAD files that have the detailed design, etc. And if the difference between them driving back to a Ramsey County facility and saying, oh, now I know what I need and I go back while it waits, versus having that mobile capacity in front of them where they tap a few keys, see exactly what they need to see, make a decision, and the whole thing moves much more productively, right? So that's the kind of enablement that we'd like to bring to bear in this time frame, and we'll deploy more so. And then something that's come up quite a bit here and has a lot of energy is the unified team concept, the idea of how do we allow people to support a wider set of things with the resident directly, and then what makes that possible? How do we enable that? Chris talked about knowledge articles, these types of things, right? Those things happen on top of platforms that are technology platforms, and we had a technology platform brought to bear by our customer service team to do this for service desk things where people call in and we have a common tool set to accept tickets, know how we're doing against solving them, make our service levels, build knowledge base, etc. Now we're taking that same technology being moved into the unified team arena. So now we're taking that towards a more customer-facing direction, and once again, enhancing the productivity of that organization in the mix. Okay. So then we're engaged in the major technology initiatives, and you'll hear this throughout the service teams as they come through over the next days here. We heard Chris talk about the property tax system, and IS is very much in the thick of the property tax system, as it is actually becoming integrated with the assessor system and the new model, making them a much more tightly integrated data sharing environment. And so IS is part of the architecting and the build out and the support of that. You'll hear from in the future around the probation systems. Will probably come up in the health and wellness arena when they're here to talk to you, and the state of that, where it needs to go. We're part of that. Electronic health records is one of the largest initiatives going on from a technological base in the county. Multi-year initiative that will go on through the next couple of years. So those are the things that we are a part of that you'll see manifest as other departments and service teams talk about what they're trying to do in the next couple of years. And then elections is a very good case that tells really what's happening from an IS point of view. If you go back just very recently, very minimal technology base to the elections in Ramsey County. You go forward per the description Chris gave, and a relatively rich technology base to the elections, right? So the importance of technology in how we operate as a county continues to grow, and therefore IS's role continues to become more important, and looking at these things more holistically across the entire county is a place where we add value in that mix, where we can see things happening in one place and ensure that they get rolled out more widely, if that makes sense. Okay? And community engagement wise, we're often part of creating things involved in community engagement. We talk about payment portals and things like that make it simpler for the community to interact with us on that front. We're kind of a silent partner with communications as it relates to delivering content. We have expertise in geographic information services, which really brings this kind of geospatial aspect to the stories that are told on our website. So we play a role in those types of things. And then we think about, just projecting out possibilities. Could we be doing things around language translation as a way to enhance our interaction with the county? And we're experimenting with simple tools to simplify collaboration where, they're really designed to make sure all voices are heard, right? So very easy technology where it could be brought out into the out into the community and ask questions, get very interactive responses that the shy person and the bold person both get their equal say in that mix, right? So we're thinking of those things as well. So on that theme of increasing, the role of technology in supporting the county, that all means that, requires IS to become more effective and efficient as an organization, as a department, and able to support the county as it goes along. And it's a dual thing, right? The county is in a more dynamic spot, and we're in a very dynamic industry. The technology industry is rapidly evolving. It's a young industry in reality, right? So there's constantly new buzzwords, new things going on. I'm sure you hear all the terms that are out there related to changes in technology. So we need to stay current as an organization. We need to be modernizing our capabilities, and then we need to marry that with what the business needs are as well. So we're in the middle of making sure that we're very cost effective in how we deliver a technology footprint for the county. So strengthen our capabilities then in becoming technology problem solvers at a higher level. And just to give an example, there are more than 12,000 devices on our network, right? Wow. So this is not a small number. It's triple what it was just a handful of years back. So this is been exploding the traffic signals, cameras, mobile phones, laptops, PCs, right? It's a very sophisticated environment that we manage now. And so when you look at that, you think, we have to be able to solve problems that happen in that. We have to have the proactive instrumentation in our system so we can hear when problems happen. We had a lightning strike recently where when it struck and a node of our network went down, that paged out a person to come in and solve. We solved it before people came in the morning, right? So building that kind of engineering into what we do so that it's less about support staff going out and more about how we remotely make things happen. Patch a security vulnerability on 4,000 PCs with a push of a button. Not quite that easy, Chris would say over there, Chief Information Security Officer, but the idea of that type of acceleration. And then also on the solution provider front, where we're looking to be more proactively engaged with the service teams as they think of needs for technology, whereas historically, back to customer surveys and things, would say IS has been a little bit late to the game in that, and so we're looking to be a little more engaged earlier on in that process, and then be able to really partner to drive those kind of solutions into place. So architecting and engineering, technology and solutions into the mix. And then security, there is no talking IT or data today without talking about security. And so security is embedded into everything we do, every part of our organization. We kind of start with, security has to be in the thick of how we go about it. So that's a very big aspect, an area we're investing materially. And as we shift our portfolio of expertise and become more efficient one place, we moved more some of that towards security to really get out in front of it. And then there are things that sound very mundane: identity and access management. Not exactly, kind of John Sixthland level energy generator, but if you think about residents first, and you say, I want to have the right data with the right staff member at the right moment in their interaction with the community member, then you have to know who that staff member is and what access they should have, and then you have to grant them that access based on role, so that they move from one service team to another, they don't take that access with them, right? So this whole idea of building these, and Karen started this in our deputy county manager, Francois, started this with the commentary around the Residents First platform. These are the kind of things we're talking about there, where if we get them right, then we're more nimble as you all come up with better ideas of how to serve the community. And then that looks at how we organize, and we're moving our organization in this direction of the things we've talked about here. And in our budget, we have no new staff requested, and so it's really about shifting the staff focus and automating, improving efficiencies in one area, and then focusing more on solutions and security and things of that sort, and engineering solutions, right? So that's really the shift. So we have the major parts of our organization: IT infrastructure, data centers, servers, networks, all the stuff that runs around the clock. That's a fairly major piece of our puzzle, and all of our applications and things run on top of that, of course. And then customer service with our service desk, all the moves, adds, changes that go on as the reorganizations happen or get deployed, et cetera. And then all the mobile computing, things of that sort. And then I just talked about security. That's a growing piece of our puzzle. And then this idea of business solutions. And historically, we use John's time machine. If you go back 10 years, IS was a third to a half development-oriented staff, right? We were programming new systems, a new jail management system that's about to be retired now with a commercial off-the-shelf solution, right? So we are less and less about writing code and more about integrating solutions that are proven, other counties are using already, or that are something that we can acquire and deploy more rapidly, and then we spend our energy on how does that data get integrated, et cetera, right? So that's a shift, which means the IS organization is in significant transformation, and so us as a leadership team, we're in transformation, right? So we are tapping organizational change management out of Heidi's organization for ourselves, right, as we go through significant change going into 2020 and 2021. So, and those big rocks are sandwiched between we have a very lightweight couple-person team that's IS liaison work out into the business areas and into the capability teams and all to make sure that we are connected effectively, and then a single person role on the other side. And Madam Chair, you mentioned outcome-oriented. We have one piece of IS now that's one person's worth of IS that's now focused on how are our vendors performing and how are we performing and are we meeting the commitments that we make to the rest of the county. So that pretty much makes up our organization. So from there, I would go to talent, attraction, retention, and promotion. That's the whole reason I'm here, right? The people part is the great part about it. Chris talks about some horizon to retire. It's out of ways. I retired, and then the eloquent DCM unretired me the next day. And the whole reason for that is the people side of it. And so this idea, I think IS will benefit greatly from the TARP project, the Talent Attraction, Retention, Promotion Project underway. We need to modernize our IS job families. We need to have career ladders and career paths so that people have a growth plan in place and can see themselves in the county down the road, achieving more and being a bigger part of it. So a very, very big piece of what we're focused on in the next couple of years is the talent side of it. Racial equity, I kind of start from how do we have it kind of ingrained in the fabric of what we do, right? And so all the things we talked about, I'm taking stuff directly from Luis on how he's going about the internship program and how he's measuring that from a diversity point of view, implementing that same thing in my performance team. So, adopting those things, there's master service agreements being put in place by the IPR contract manager so that we have a lot more SBEs and minority-owned SBEs in the mix of who we can draw from as we draw members out of the community in IS, right? We use a substantial amount of third-party workforce and services, right? So we can have a significant impact there on bringing in a very diverse group of subs in that way. All right. So then, if we shift a little bit towards the strategic technology view, one of the buzzwords that's been around is cloud computing, right? And I kind of say the fog is burning off of what cloud computing really means. And if we think about what it means to us, we have a data center, we acquire servers and capacity and all of that stuff, and we try to manage it effectively and use it effectively. Well, cloud computing in our model now is we have that, but we have Microsoft's Azure cloud available to us. And think of it as just flexible capacity. Pay for it as much as you need. It's in a robust, secure, highly managed environment, so it's very strong availability-wise. It's very cost-effective because we're getting the economies of scale of all the other counties in the state that are also Microsoft-based shops from these things, so we're all kind of moving in a direction. And then we can look strategically at what is our data center footprint in the future. Do we want to be in the business of managing big chillers and backup power supplies and all that type of stuff, or do we shrink that footprint and be more cloud-centric? So during this budget cycle, we'll do the strategic work on that front to say, what does that future look like from a data center point of view, and then looking at data integration. Many of the services that we provide rely on state data, and so we have the state is moving down a path of improving how they provide that data, and then we as a county, how do we consume that data in a more real-time fashion? How do we retire some of the coding that we've done over time now that we can use the state directly, get more cost-effective, get more real-time in the mix? And so we're focused in the 2020 and 2021 cycle on how do we ensure that we have a better data integration capability around across the county. All right. So if you wrap that up and say, more aspirationally, can we help accelerate achievement of the county strategies and strategic priorities, right? Can we bring the right data to the right person at the right time? Can we shorten the delivery cycle? If we bring collaboration tools to bear that people can say, oh, well, I can more easily collaborate with the commissioners now. I don't have to write code. You don't have to wait for a cycle of development and all of that. You just, drag and drop and we have that kind of capability in place, right? So that's the idea, start to move to where we can accelerate those things. And then, of course, increasing productivity, everyone involved is at the core of what we're attempting to do. All right? So I think that was last because Deputy Francois is so confident in my time management abilities when I'm speaking. So with that, I'll end and open for questions.
Wow. Well, I do want to comment that you've made it very entertaining, first of all. But I think that, when I look at my work in the GIS community at the state level and at the information services at the national level, the people, you doing the work, are the most humble people I've ever met. Because I've often said that it's like, as policymakers, we ask for information, we ask for data, we ask for all this stuff to help us make the most informed decisions that we possibly can, and you just bring it. And it's kind of like magic, and it really isn't. And the security, the increased need for cybersecurity, and all these things that really are the basis for what we do throughout the county, you just get it done. And so I just wanted to say thank you for that. I know we have a couple of questions, but I also, I'm not going to let you be the last person, actually. I almost hate to say that I want John Sipkelin to come back up because you thought that he kind of overpowered you anyway, or overshadowed you. But
Overpowered.
Actually, not overpowered, overshadowed. The reason that I'm going to ask him to come back up is because when you were talking about the technology and information services, it reminded me of our last budget cycle when a gentleman came up and talked about accessibility and all of the things that we were in the process of doing but didn't quite have done yet. And I want him to come up and give an update on that as well. So first we'll take questions. I think Commissioner McGuire, you had your hand up.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your first budget presentation. That was amazing.
Okay.
I mean, I was just so engaged in all the great things that you're doing. So great job. And it is truly exciting, all the areas that you're working in, and you did make it very interesting for all of us. I just have a question, sort of an overall question, because you mentioned the mobile devices and the departments that are increasingly needing those. So I was just curious what percentage of our workforce is heading in that direction. I mean, I think we're doing a lot more of it. What do you think in the end, or what's the amount of mobile work that we're gonna be doing in our county work?
So, Madam Chair, Commissioner, today in the mix of desktop devices going out the door and mobile devices going out the door as new people come in, I think it's 50%, with a little help from my friends over there in the audience. So it was, I think, maybe just a third not that long ago. So the mix is already shifting dramatically towards a mobile device as the device of choice.
So
and that will continue.
Yeah, so thank you so much for that, and thanks to all of your staff. I mean, I'm noticing a marked difference in just how we are getting the right people at the right time to the right place, and just getting that information accessible. So keep up your good work. I mean, we need it to continue, so thank you.
Any others? Thank you.
Madam
Okay.
Chair, just before Rich leaves, I just wanted to mention two call-outs that were kind of buried in what you said, but on the budget side, I think are important call-outs to the work. So on the information services and effectiveness side, part of the core systems infrastructure and operations received $595,000 in 2020 and $730,000 in 2021 in new levy money. Just wanted to call that out. That was one of the things that rose up. And then the Technology Applications Fund, Deputy County Manager Francois mentioned earlier, we have not right-sized that program. While the need has grown, the program has not, would be the easiest way to say it, over multiple budget cycles. This won't get us the whole way there yet. We'll still end up using some of our year-end money to cover some of our technology needs in this organization. that's okay as a balance, but moving from 2.8 million annually for the last year in 2020 to 4.8 million on an annual basis beginning in 2021.
Deputy County Manager Francois.
Madam Chair, I actually wanted to also call out something that our CIO failed to say, which he often does, is he's very dedicated to the work of TARP, and he often says,
TARP today, TARP tomorrow, TARP forever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And he's a cheerleader too, yay.
Take that, John Sickland.
Okay. He's not sure he wants to come up here at all.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, you had asked a question about accessibility following the last public hearing we had, and a gentleman who was talking about captioned video was the bulk of his conversation. So just to kind of play off of that, what we do in communications in concert with the PMO and with IS is when we're procuring new technologies, we ensure that they are meeting those ADA requirements. So for our website project, for instance, that was baked into what we did. We battle tested it. We did lots of work to ensure that we were meeting those standards and built a framework so that when we put information on our website, it is easy to navigate with people who use screen readers or are low vision. The same is true of the procurement that's underway it's beyond procurement, the implementation of the new board document system. We heard about that earlier today. So that's an area where captioned video is going to be really key, and that is going to be a requirement of when that system is implemented. That will meet the needs that gentleman specifically brought forward. But I think it's important for our viewers and for everyone in the room to understand that this digital-first approach that we've talked about in communications is accessible. So that part of that strategy is once we build the framework of these technology platforms that are to standards, and then we put content in those, that content is accessible for those individuals who are low vision or blind.
Okay, thank you. Karen.
yes.
You get almost the last word.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have to say, wow. I am so proud of this team. And thank you all for coming. So many of you are here. They show me daily how they value and they live our values. They value people, all people. They value all community with whom, as you've heard today, that we engage with daily. And we engage them not only as residents and customers, but we engage them in our decision making. We've heard a lot about modernization today. None of that work happened without the voices of our community and without the voices of our staff. These folks behind me value equity, especially for people who are traditionally overlooked, like Native Americans and people of color and immigrants. And my team and I will continue to work diligently in 20 and 21 to ensure that we reflect the vibrant, rich diversity of Ramsey County residents, all residents. Like I said earlier, I'm proud of this budget. I'm proud of this team that put it together. I want to call out our controller who has done such a remarkable job. I'm sure all of you will agree that Tracy West has just been a godsend for us during this budget cycle. So thank you, Deshani. I'm proud of this budget. I'm proud of the county manager who has been so bold and such an amazing leader in a very innovative, a budget that we can all be proud of. And I'm proud of the board. I see you all living our values and sharing our values every day, so thank you so much for that. I hope all of our residents and our customers will share these values too, because like Paul Wellstone said, we all do better when we all do better. So thank you, Madam Chair, for this opportunity. Thank you, commissioners. I'm excited about the much-needed transformational change that this budget will help bring about. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, some of the words that I have heard, such as the transformational change, modernization, the extensive systemic change, I mean, all of these things are about what we're trying to do for the future. Also, the professionalism and earning the public trust is so important, and that was evident throughout all of the presentations today, and I hope they will be in future ones as well. But I do think that the compassionate regulation is the one that's going to stick with me pretty well, because when you think about it, it's as a county, sometimes government can seem overwhelming to people, and to know that each person and the residents first is really what we are all about, and that's what compassion is about as well. So we have, yes,
Thanks,
Commissioner McDonough.
Maybe a budget question, maybe not, maybe into the future, but there's a theme here that started with your presentation last week on the budget, and then it continued here, and I'm sure it's going to continue through the rest of the presentations. Is this change component, change agent, what's going on in our county, and so far when departments have looked at opportunities and challenges, changes come up in both of them, potentially as the challenge of how to manage that, the opportunity of what it might bring for this county. And listening to your excitement, listening to the excitement of leaders, I'm just wondering, what are we doing to think about supporting the change that's going on in our county for our employees, supporting the excitement and the leadership coming, and helping get through the times when that excitement and hope for the future is going to be challenged by active resistors. And then how are we supporting our workforce as we're moving and expecting them to change? And I think continuing to see this, I think, I don't know whether it's coming from you countywide, whether it's coming in individual service teams and they're managing with their leadership, but I think we need to be more deliberate about how we're supporting each other and how we're trying to push this county forward so that we can be set up for success, rather than the potential where change always comes up in challenge rather than in opportunity.
Well, and I do think part of that, and then I'll let the county manager respond as well, is really working not just with the leadership, but with our line staff, specifically organized labor. They've got a lot of ideas. They're the ones that are putting things that have to make all the changes. I mean, it happens throughout the organization. And so really looking at, when we talk about residents first, also talking about our workers and how we support them from at all levels. County manager.
Madam Chair, Commissioner McDonough, I do think it's a question that's with us. I have a feeling it'll be a theme that continues throughout the budget process, so I don't know that I can give one definitive answer today, but would be open to continuing the conversation as we go. On a specific level to today, when the Deputy County Manager earlier referenced the $1 million and the $2 million in residents first, people and process, that doesn't mean anything really, I guess, on a high level, right? But what that means internally to us is, so we're investing in change to technology, we're investing in change to buildings, we're investing in change in the way we design programs. We have never invested in change management as a discipline within our organization. And what I have seen on a limited level in the modernization work in information and public records, in many ways led by Karen, so I want to give her credit, she keeps saying, change management has to be a core component of this. Change management needs to be a core component. And it came up through this budget process, right? As a service team innovation that we took countywide. I think when I reflect on my 6 years here, limited compared to some of you, I would say mobile field devices would have been a jarring change 6 years ago here. Instead, it was an opportunity that led to a successful conversation. The transition to a unified team last year would have been a jarring change for a service team with all sorts of reasons why we couldn't do it. And instead, when I was invited to go talk with the service team about where we're going, I heard from employees about we got engaged. Like, we were asked what we thought before the change in fact occurred. I think that principle and process needs to continue as we go, working directly with employees as a part of that process. And I just want to acknowledge part of why it shows up in the challenges is we can't be naive to the fact that it will be hard. And we need to juxtapose our uncomfortability with the need and the demand from our community to always strive and do better. And I don't think it leads all to one side of that ledger, but I appreciate the question, and I hope that starts to get at some of the work we're trying to do.
Commissioner McDonough?
And I appreciate it that it shows up in the challenges. I think that's a good eyes wide open and really healthy and productive. I'm hoping that we're thinking about being more intentional to continue to drive this, because it will get harder and harder, right? And, I've seen organizations, whether it's government, nonprofit, or even businesses, that have really tried to position themselves for the future, but really not taking a look at how do they manage supporting the people that they expect to help lead on this, but then also helping support the people that are going to move. And to be more deliberate about that, rather than looking to, again, kind of what we do really well is we depend on champions and leaders that really take this on in their own personal initiative, versus actually having a conversation about how do we ingrain it in what we're doing within the teams as we're moving forward.
Deputy County Manager Francois.
Madam Chair, Commissioner McDonough, we are being intentional. As I mentioned earlier, we're building out the organizational change management discipline within our PMO. We actually just, August 1st, our first organizational change manager was hired. She is someone who has been working with, I think she's back there too. She's someone who's been working with us on modernization for the past year, and she's part of the reason why when the county manager came to talk with our staff, they were so on board, because she's been doing a lot of work with staff. I think she's probably met with each one of our staff members in the Plato building, and now is working her way through communications and the PMO and IS. And we are being very intentional, because you don't come into an organization where the county manager says that change is the constant without understanding that you need to manage that change. That's one thing. The other work that we're doing around organizational change management is around the values work. I've been leading there are 4 themes that came out of our TARP report, and one of them was organizational culture. We were the group that listened to the voices of staff around the county to develop the values. We are at a place now where we're getting ready to engage a consultant to come in and do organization-wide change management to get folks bought into the values. County manager said that by the end of the year, he'd like to see everyone in the county having been engaged and starting to live out these values, and we're being intentional about that as well. I hope Lee doesn't get too shocked by what I'm going to say, but I'd love to have an organizational change manager in each one of our service teams. There's a lot of change coming down the pike, and we want to help manage that. We don't want to just throw things at staff and expect them to accept it. We want to be able to manage that change. And, I'm grateful that Christina Ralston came on board as our organizational change manager lead. And she and Heidi and others in the PMO are going to help build out that discipline. And that, to me, is very exciting. I've never worked for an organization who had the foresight to really invest in managing change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's really. Okay, we, next week is the, next Tuesday, from 1 to 4:30 here in the chambers will be the Economic Growth and Community Investment Service Team budget. And since there's no further business for us now, I will adjourn the Information and Public Records Service Team budget hearing. Thank you. So many words.
One down.
Yeah.